give you a quick second to find your notes or click the appropriate button, I suppose. So I will call Committee of the Whole December 10th to order. Is there any declaration of interest? Seeing none, we'll move forward. If one does arise during the course of the meeting, I would ask you to declare it at that time. Madam Clerk, we are early for our delegations. What is your wish?
I think if our first delegation is 10:30, so I think we can probably get through the consent agenda and then perhaps the committee appointments prior to the 10:30 delegation time.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. So that said, we're going to move on. Item number 4, is there any items requiring separate discussion in the consent agenda?
I see Councillor O'Leary.
Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I'd ask that item 5C, Bombay Beach Road subdivision information be pulled.
Thank you. Excellent. So seeing no others, I will ask, it's moved by, Councillor Woodbury and seconded by Councillor Keaveney that we approve the consent agenda. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Thank you. And we'll move on to item 6, the committee appointments. I guess we cannot move yet with the mover. Madam Clerk, I'll put things in your hands.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. We actually do have a mover and seconder, so we can go ahead with that to put it on the floor for discussion.
Very good then. Moved by Councillor Woodbury. Sorry. I'm missing that's a consent agenda. Moved by Councillor Patterson and seconded by Councillor Robinson, right? Now it's on the floor.
Thank you very much. So as Council is aware, the committee appointment report is brought forward annually for approval of memberships on various county committees for the upcoming year. As approved through previous council reports, the warden will sit as a member of the Owen Sound Georgian College Advisory Committee and the ALS Grey Bruce Committee, as well as various other county committees by virtue of his office. In the report, you will note, and there was a link to the letter, a letter has been received from the Board of Health asking both Grey and Bruce counties to pass a resolution to maintain appointments for another year to provide consistency during the pandemic. The request for the Board of Health appointees, the request was that for the Board of Health appointees to remain for a further 1-year term, and it is part of the overall resolution contained within this report. There is an opening currently for the alternate for the Grey County Federation of Agriculture. Councillor McQueen has put his name forward for that membership, and I didn't know if there was anyone who was interested in putting their name forward as the alternate. If not, we will just notify the Grey County Federation of Agriculture that Councillor McQueen will be our representative.
Yes.
Oh, I see Councillor Desai and Councillor Soever have a question related to that.
Okay, Councillor Desai. Are you muted?
I think he's frozen.
Oh,
Okay.
darn. Hello?
There you go. You're good.
Scotty beat me up. I would be happy to stand as the alternate for the Grey County Federation of Ag.
Okay, and Councillor Soever?
I was going to say the same, I'd step up, but if Councillor Desai has stepped up, I'm happy to let him be the alternate.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. We will add Councillor Desai as the alternate. It's recommended that due to the pandemic and the decrease in the number of meetings that were held by various task forces over the 2020 year, the memberships will continue for 2021 until the end of the respective mandates. For 2020, Council approved an amendment to the terms of reference for the Economic Development Planning Advisory Committee from 6 to 7 members. And while there were 7 members in 2020 initially appointed, there was a resignation of Councillor Bartnicki, and the 7th position was not filled in 2020. Therefore, the information contained in my report was incorrect. I didn't account for the adjustment in membership from last year. So there are 7 members requesting their name be put forward to that committee, and there are 7 positions, so there will not be a requirement to have an election for that committee. Elections are required for 2 committees. The Long-Term Care Committee of Management, we have 7 council members interested and 6 positions. And the CAO Objectives and Evaluation Committee, 5 names for 4 positions. I will note that since the report was published, Councillor Patterson has withdrawn her name from the CAO committee. What will happen after we go through the rest of the report, I'll ask the intentions of each member putting their name forward for these committees. And if there is still election required, each member will have up to 2 minutes to provide comments on why they wish to sit on that committee. An election will be held using the raise hand feature in Zoom to determine the membership for 2021. So that is the end of my report, other than proceeding with the elections if necessary. I'm not sure if there are any questions at this point in time before we proceed to that.
Any questions, Council?
I see CAO Wingrove has a comment.
Go ahead, Madam
Thanks.
CEO.
Thank you. And just to let council know, we are bringing a report to the first meeting in January to strike the Long-Term Care Redevelopment Planning Committee. So that, if that helps people when they think about how best to invest their time, there will be another opportunity in that area coming forward in the new year.
I guess the suggestion, Kim, is if anyone was planning to join the Long-Term Care Committee of Management in the hopes of participating in the redevelopment process, they might want to save the opportunity for what's to come.
Thank you. Yes.
Does anyone on that list, Councillors Burley, Robinson, Mackey, O'Leary, Clumpus, Woodbury, or McQueen? I guess I'm trying to avoid an election if we can. Does that impact anyone's decision to leave their name on the Committee of Management roster? Okay, Madam Clerk, we're proceeding.
I see Councillor Burley.
Oh, I didn't see
question,
one.
Mr.
Councillor
Warden.
Burley?
A question, Mr. Warden. Is CAO and yourself indicating that you can't sit on both committees?
That was not, that's not a decision that's been taken by council, and certainly I would not have a recommendation like that.
No. Okay. All right, through you, Mr. Warden, if there are no other questions related to the report itself and the committee appointments, I will then be asking the intentions of each member of council for each committee. And then if we do require election, then we will go through the that process.
Okay.
So I'll start with the Long-Term Care Committee of Management. Councillor Burley, you want to remain?
Yes, I do.
Okay. Councillor Clumpus?
Yes, please.
Councillor O'Leary?
Yes, I do.
Councillor Mackey?
Yes, I'd like to let my name stand, please.
Okay. Councillor McQueen?
Sorry, I was on mute. Yes, I'd like to let my name stand.
Thank you. Councillor Robinson?
Yes, thank you.
Okay. And Councillor Woodbury?
Definitely.
Okay, thank you. For the CAO committee, Councillor Body?
Yes, please.
Okay. Councillor Desai?
Yes, please.
Councillor Hutchinson?
Yes, please.
Councillor Millen?
Yes, Madam Clerk.
And Councillor Potter?
I will withdraw, Madam Clerk. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. So there is no election required for the CAO committee. Thank you very much, everyone. So the members of that committee will be Councillors Boddy, Desai, Hutchinson, and Millen. So we will go to an election for the Long-Term Care Committee of Management. Each member will have up to 2 minutes to speak on why they wish to sit on that committee, and then an election will be held. We will start with Councillor Burley.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I have a very passionate attitude when it comes to long-term care. I've got a vast experience to do with Social Service Committee Chair and then into long-term care. I really think I'm a valuable asset to that committee, and I would like to continue on with it. And it's going to be a very challenging committee in the future. And I would definitely like to move forward with it. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Burley. Councillor Clumpus.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. And I too, I guess I am a relatively new member on that committee, but I have certainly learned a lot and enjoyed working with this dynamic team. I think the committee itself has gelled well and are working together very well. It's a cohesive, collaborative work in progress with our staff, who are our very valued staff. I also have a very passionate commitment to our seniors in our communities around Grey County, and a strong interest and working relationship with long-term care elsewhere. So I really would like to continue on in this committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Clumpus. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. I think after the Grey Gables decision, in an effort to get on board with Council's decision, I put myself on this committee to learn as much as I could about our long-term care homes. And in the process, I've developed a bit of a passion for that. So with Council's blessing, I'd be happy to stay on. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor O'Leary. Councillor Mackey. You are on mute, Councillor Mackey. Councillor Mackey, you're on mute.
Sorry, I was muted. Thank you, Madam Clerk. Mr. Warden, members of council, it's been my privilege and honor to serve on the Long-Term Care Committee, I think since its inception, so for a number of years. The opportunity has certainly afforded me the appreciation of the complexities that our long-term care system has. And I'd just like to extend a sincere thanks to all of our senior management and long-term care and all of our staff for the work they've done over the last 9 months. It's been a really challenging time, but they've certainly met those challenges head on and are doing a wonderful job. So you truly are remarkable, all of the staff that we have. Hats off to staff from other departments that went and lent assistance in our long-term care homes, and that's really remarkable. Being a member of the Long-Term Care Committee is a responsibility I take very seriously, and I respectfully ask for my colleagues' support in staying on the committee. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Mackey. Councillor McQueen.
Well, thank you for this opportunity to stand on the Long-Term Care Committee. I was on it as the warden for the 2020 year. Certainly, you probably are all aware that I've been very involved with long-term care and its operation throughout a number of years, going back to even the last term. Certainly, with Grey Gables being in Grey Highlands, I feel that I would also be an asset there in a sense of if there's any relationship or any information that needs to be followed through to our staff, I could certainly help bridge that gap. I know with regards to in the sense of building permits or building staff, or if there's information, I think that I would be able to follow through on that item. And along with Grey Highlands is also a tenant of Grey Gables, and that sense of having that discussion as well and moving forward. And what happens on that part. Certainly on the Grey County side of things, certainly long-term care is very important. We're moving forward with redevelopment, and I do have kind of building experience in my background, and certainly a good practical understanding of how things work. So hopefully I get the support of the County Council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Clerk Morrison, Warden Hicks, and County Council. I am respectfully requesting your support as I seek to continue serving on the Long-Term Care Committee of Management. As a participating member of this committee, it has been extremely rewarding to build on the long-term care initiatives for Grey County. Long-term care is a focus that I have. I am very passionate about long-term care, and I enjoy being part of a dynamic committee that has a governance oversight role and responsibilities. I would like to continue to represent and contribute to this committee. I'm asking for your support to be elected to this committee and look forward to continuing to work toward a collective goal of providing excellence in care and service in long-term care for Grey County. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Robinson. Councillor Woodbury.
Thank you. I've been a member of the long-term care management team for the last 3 years. We've seen go through quite a few changes as far as direction and with the staff moving up in new positions. I feel that my organizational background is an asset to what's happening in the future and the changes in the future. And I would just very much like to be part of this expansion and the care for our seniors that is so important to so many of us. Jennifer and her staff have done a fantastic job, and the results you can see through what's happened with COVID with our long-term care. And I would just like to be involved and support what's going on in the future. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woodbury. We will now proceed with the vote. There are 7 names put forward for 6 positions. So you are able to vote for up to 6 members of this task force, or this committee, sorry. And we will use the raise hand feature in Zoom. Okay. If there are no questions, I will proceed with the election.
Madam Clerk, if you could just give everyone a reminder of how to use the raised hand function in Zoom. So if you're using the iPad, I guess you go to more, where those 3 dots are. And then you will see, if you're using the iPad, you will see the raise hand feature in the list. I don't know what instructions to give for other devices. Is there anyone who does not know how to use the raise hand feature? Raise your hand, maybe we can help you.
Mr. Warden.
Councillor Milne.
I'm actually logged on using my laptop PC, and there's no raised hand feature there.
Rob,
if I may,
yeah,
if you show participants, can you see that, Councillor Milne?
Yes, I can.
So if you do that, and then you look at the very bottom of the list.
Yes, here we are.
Yes. Okay.
Thank you.
You're
Does
welcome.
that help others? Councillor Clumpus?
I have the same problem. Is that the chat feature? Because all I see is the participants chat, share screen, and record.
Right. So if you click on participants, and then you get that.
Got it.
Okay.
Got it.
Good.
Thank you.
Good.
Excellent. Okay. Is there anyone else who is still?
Yes. Excuse me, Mr. Warden. I do
Councillor
apologize.
Robinson?
I do
No problem.
apologize. I'm sorry to be the one that needs the most help today. But I do click on the dots where it says more. And,
yes.
And then what happens after I click on that section, please?
So there should be a list there. It starts with, on my screen, it says chat, webinar settings, minimize webinar, visual background, raise hand, and disconnect audio.
Yes.
Those are the options that I see.
So should I be clicking on that section? The participant section, when I go to the bottom, unfortunately doesn't have the options for raising hands. So would it work if I use the more section? I'm just asking. Sorry to delay the process.
No, that's right. For the iPad, you'll use the more and use the raise hand feature that way.
Thank you for the clarity.
You got it.
Is
Councillor
there
Campbell?
anyone else? Okay.
Councillor Gamble, do you have a question? I see your hand. Oh, your hand was raised. We want to just run a
He was
trial.
practicing.
Maybe. That's what I'm wondering is if we want to just run a trial to see that everyone can raise their hand feature, use the raise their hand feature before we get into that. So
Okay.
go ahead and I'll look and make sure we have 17 or 18 members or hands raised.
Councillor Gamble has a question, Madam Clerk.
Yes, go ahead, Councillor. Nope, you're good.
No. He's raising his hand manually. Councillor Gamble, are you able to do it on the screen? You're muted. There you go.
All I get is lower hand. That's not right.
Well, that you have raised your hand already, so that will be your option to lower it then. So you do have it. You would have had hit raise hand already.
Right, so my hand is raised right now and I can turn it off by hitting lower hand.
Okay.
If I could, sorry, just suggest, all councillors have to worry about is raising their hand and staff can lower them all in one button.
Very good. Are we all clear? Is there anyone else still needing some assistance? So go ahead, staff. I guess you can clear all of the raised hands. It'll be cleared for you. So all of our hands are now lowered.
That's correct.
The clerk is going to proceed with the voting.
Thank you. So we will go in alphabetical order. As I said, you are eligible to vote for up to 6 members on this committee. So the first one will be for Councillor Burley. Okay, thank you. I have 15. We'll wait. Okay, the next one will be for Councillor Klumpus. Thank you. I have 13. The next one will be for Councillor O'Leary. Thank you. I have 14. I have 15. Okay. Next one will be for Councillor Mackey. Thank you. I have 16. Next one, oh, I'll wait for the clear. There we go. Next one will be for Councillor McQueen. Thank you. I have 12. Next one will be for Councillor Robinson. Thank you. I have 14. And finally, Councillor Woodbury. Thank you. I have 14. So the members of the Committee of Management for 2021 will be Councillor Burley, O'Leary, Mackey, Woodbury, Robinson, Clumpus. Mr. Warden, we will need an amending motion just to identify the members of the committees that from today, the CAO committee that didn't require an election, and the Committee of Management, as well as Councillor Desai's nomination for the alternate for the Grey County Federation of Agriculture.
Madam Clerk, will that not be covered by the Councillors Patterson and Robinson's motion?
The appointments that were included in the report will be covered, but the main motion just indicates that there'll be elections held.
Okay.
For those, it doesn't indicate the successful members of that committee. Now, I do note that Councillor Body has his hand up. I'm not sure if he has a question. No? Okay. All right. Just to hold over.
So my suggestion, is it appropriate, Madam Clerk, to suggest that Councillor Patterson and Councillor Robinson be the movers?
If they wish to, that's perfectly
as well
fine.
As the movers for the.
And then we'll maybe look to them for
a.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
I see Councillors Patterson and Robinson nodding their heads. If they're okay with that, then they can be the movers for the amended motion. And is there anyone opposed to the amended motion? Seeing none, I'm going to say that that's carried. And to the main motion, again, by Councillors Patterson and Robinson. Anyone opposed? That too is carried.
Thank you very much, council members.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. Congratulations to those who were successful. Looking forward to a great year. So we can go back now, I believe, Madam Clerk, to our delegations.
Yes.
Excellent. And is Mr. Gervais, is it Gervais or Jervis? Gervais, right?
Gervais.
I think Savannah will provide an introduction.
Is he present? Excellent. Who's introducing him, Madam Clerk?
Savannah.
Okay. Savannah, you have the floor.
Excellent. Thank you, Warden and Council. Good morning. We do have Trent Gervais here with us. He is the President and CEO of Lumex, and he is currently contracted to manage the Wyerton-Keppel International Airport. We thought it was really important to have him here today because he is certainly the expert in this field. So I don't want to delay too much. I know he's got a lot of information for you. So I will hand it over to Trent, and then following Trent's delegation, we can talk about the report.
Thanks very much, Savannah, and good morning, Warden Hicks and County Council. Thank you for having me today. I'm very passionate about when I see great opportunities with airports and seeing what can be done with them. So I just, Madam Clerk, just wondering if the presentation, if you have it or you want me to share my...
Tara can share her screen if that's what you would like.
Okay,
You'll just
sure.
have to let her know when to move through the slides.
Okay, thank you. So I'll just get started just quickly a little bit with the Lumex group, and I'm going to just concentrate on our aviation branch. We have 3 branches. With our aviation branch, we have a fantastic team of business leaders, operations folks, business development individuals, compliance and standards staff, emergency planners, and accountants. And together, our team offers many services in aviation. One of them is we manage airports across Canada. We manage 7 currently, and we work for about 20 to 30 at any given time. So one of the unique things, we do consulting, and one of the advantages of what we do is we actually, we build airports, we create the business plan on how to operate them, and then we also offer operations and management services. So we really understand what's required from the ground up, from taking a vision and turning it into reality. And I just want to say that the questions that are asked about airports in your region are the same questions that many regions and areas across Canada are asking right now. So it's great to have these conversations. And my feeling is that you have to operate your airports as a business. So we'll talk a bit about that this morning. Next slide, please. This is, today we're talking about the Wyerton Keppel International Airport, but I really want you to take the focus and think about the airport and the other airports in the area together as a regional opportunity. Next slide, please. So the goal for looking at regionalization, so first of all, every airport in your community should strive to be self-sustaining. So this airport model and what should be looked at moving ahead with Wyerton and looking at incorporating the other airports is to make the business model that it's profitable, or at least breaking even, to take the burden off the taxpayers. It's very difficult when taxpayers are trying to come up with money for sewer and water and all the other essential services. So the airport should look at a business model that will break even or become profitable. Next slide, please. So one of the advantages about Wyerton is it is the only certified airport in Grey and Bruce counties, which is significant for many reasons that we'll talk about. It does, the primary runway is 5,000 feet long and does have the potential for the secondary crosswind. So 5,000 feet with lots of opportunity for growth of that airport. So Canada Customs for the seasonal, and it's important to note that most of the jet traffic during the summer months comes from the US. So that's money coming into the region. It is open 24 hours a day, which is significant for goods and passengers to travel in and out of your area every day, all day. It is the host of Nav Canada's backup navigation equipment as well. So it plays a critical link in aeronautical services in the area. Next slide. This is and when we did a little bit of digging into this, that there's 38 medevacs that are used by the airport at any given roughly, and that's patients that from the region, not just Wyerton or Georgian Bluffs itself. So really important to point out that the airport provides that critical link for life safety. Next slide. So just a breakdown on that, there's 8 fixed wing, 30 rotary wing flights. So it's not just helicopters coming in. It is important to point out that helicopters just can't land anywhere for that patient transfer, non-emergencies. They have to land at an airport. So next slide. It does have a 24-hour human weather observation on site, which again is one of the last few airports that have that, which is the best service to have. 820 acres of land, so that's really significant when you're looking at growth at an airport and protection of the airport surroundings with tree heights and building heights and whatnot. So that's really important to have as well. The other important feature of this airport that very few airports have and not in the area is that it does have the proper approaches for getting the traffic in. So the IFR approaches, the low minima, which means in bad weather, aircraft can get in, get out. So when you're looking at expanding an airport without the proper approaches, you're very handcuffed to what you can do with that airport. Next slide. The public terminal building, the pilot's lounge, all these things that make up the tenants that are on board, all this makes up and helps with the sustainability of an airport moving forward. So again, Wyerton is very advanced with having some of these services available. Next slide. Just wanted to point out some movement. So movement is a takeoff and landing, and this is really important in engaging you know, how well the airport's moving along. And if you look at just a snapshot of 2019 with just shy of 5,000 movements. And what's really important to point out is if you look at the months between May and October, that's when the movements are up, which tells me that you have significant business or leisure travel coming in and out during those summer months, and you know, tourism is a big part of it. So there's a really great opportunity with taking a regional approach to look at getting those numbers up all year round by attracting businesses to the area. Next slide. This is an important number when you look at what's the purpose of the airport. This was a little bit behind now, it was in 2016, but if you look at the GDP sitting at 2.3 million, so and we all know what that means. You know, if we took the airport away from the area, that 2.3 million, a significant part of that would leave the region. So that's a great number to build on, and we see great potential with this airport and airports in the region to really build on that number. Next slide. So look at why Wyerton and why invest in thinking about the regional model. So this slide, there's a couple things we looked at. When aerospace businesses, aeronautical businesses, aerospace are looking at establishing themselves, they want that ease of connectivity. And if you look at Grey County and you draw, set a circle out that 500 kilometers or 310 miles, which is which would be travel with ease to do business. So by establishing a maintenance, repair, and overhaul facility, for instance, at Wyerton, that's ease of travel to all the areas just on the other side of the border. So Detroit, Cleveland, Pittsburgh, Syracuse, Columbus, Milwaukee, and to the north, Sault Ste. Marie. So some of the key, Ottawa as well. So this is significant when aerospace companies are looking at establishing themselves. So you're situated really well for that expansion. Next slide. The next slide we looked at, if there was some sort of travel in and out of the Wyerton Airport as far as scheduled service, and whether it be to Toronto or connectivity to Toronto to Ottawa or some of the significant areas, and both leaving and coming into your community. So now with COVID and with what's happening in the aerospace industry, domestic travel is going to be one of the first things that recovers in COVID. So here's an example where the domestic vacations will be predominant. So we looked at that on a scale, and for folks leaving, so would you travel, you know, within 75 kilometers to get on a flight at the airport? So 153,000 people would be the catchment area. And one of the things to look at is what's the leakage? How many people are leaving this area to take other modes of transportation that the airport could maximize on? Next slide. The other important area is 420 acres of development lands that are available and easy to develop, as well as the airside parcels with 50+ acres. This is really significant. There's a lot of airports that would cost significant amounts of money just to be able to realize that this the advantage of having this land's available. The flexible land leases, the three-phase power, the municipal water, the natural gas, all this, again, is good for shovel-ready development for your area. And it's important to point out that aerospace businesses, the margins are really low, so they're going to look at where can they establish themselves to have low operating costs to be able to maximize their profitability. Next slide. I'll just go through this quick, but we talked about the weather and the ability to land in those inclement weathers, and Wyerton's well situated for that. Next slide. This is another important factor to point out. So again, when you're developing in an airport, there's very few smaller airports that have this capability. And when we look at point load, that's the ability of what size aircraft can be landed at Wyerton Airport. And it's rated for a 737, an Airbus 320, anything in that size of aircraft that, again, you could put 140, 150 passengers on and fly in and out of Wyerton. So as well as the military aircraft and cargo aircraft, the airport has that rating, which is a very critical number that very few airports of this size can say that they have. Next slide. The other thing is the potential for runway expansion. So you can, with a quick look at the numbers we did, go up to 7,500 feet. So that 737 now, you can load with maximum passenger load and cargo loads and whatnot. So there is plenty of room for potential expansion on the airport for the future. Next slide. This is just a draft site plan to show that the areas in blue are all very developable for that airside access to the runway, with the runway expansion, with parallel taxiways. So as far as setting the airport up for the future growth, it's very well situated. Next slide. We looked at what the high potential was for the airport. So, you know, if you were to run it again like a business, to run it as a regional model, what sort of business would you look at? And flight schools, so number of pilots that were retiring will have retired because of COVID. International pilots, there's a big demand for flight schools coming back. The MRO, so maintenance, repair, and overhaul facilities, the tourism packages, new hangar developments. These are the high potential that we saw for your airport. There's a number of non-aviation related ones that just complement the aviation perspective, but in our eyes, these four pillars are things that this airport and the region should work together on to attract. Next slide. Just wanted to show you a few examples. As I mentioned, there's many regions that have looked at what to do with their asset. Just showing a few examples here. Peterborough is a good example of airport we manage. 885 acres. Started with 340, with some development, acquired some land. Next slide. And Peterborough started positioning themselves on, you know, what to do with the airport. It was a similar size to Wyerton, was a significant burden on taxpayers. So situated the airport with similar pillars to what we recommended for Wyerton. Did a solid business case with a master plan, a strategic development plan, all that leading towards development. So in 2007, there was approximately 70 jobs on the airport. Today, there's about 522 with the expansion work that was completed. Next slide. This is just a shot of the airport, again, similar to Wyerton in 2007. Next slide. This is with some development and growth. So August 2020. So now you see there's approximately 30 general aviation hangars compared to 5. There's the Seneca school, flight school that was developed. Flying Colors, which is a world-class MRO that had about 30 employees in 2007, and they're up to about 300 now. So you can see with a really good, solid business plan that makes sense, not pie in the sky, you know, dream the things that will never happen. It's just having a realistic regional approach to a solid business plan. Next slide. This is a shot of the general aviation area, which again, there's approximately 200 or 300 aircraft that house at the airport. Next slide. This is another significant number that of private money as of 2016. So $32 million was invested by private individuals because of the airport's vision to be that regional asset, that they're investing in the airport as well to expand their businesses. And that's probably up to about another 20 million right now. Next slide. 24 aerospace businesses. So, but compared to a half a dozen before this approach was put in place, as well as similar to what Wyerton can do with shovel-ready service lands. Partnerships for research and development educational institutions. I would add for Wyerton, add educational. Tourism as another big factor that should be in play as well. Next slide. The education, so everything from the colleges, universities to the high schools, getting the high school students involved in aviation at a young age, and they can go into any trade. Next slide. This is significant. So in 2008, $41 million is GDP. As of 2016, 74 million. And it's up to probably about 100 million in today's dollars. So again, with a good solid business plan, treating it as a as a regional approach to development, this is what happened. Next slide. And similar to what I just mentioned with the roles with MRO, aerospace manufacturing, leisure and executive charters, research and development, all the things that Wyerton's well situated for. Next roll, next slide. Seneca School of Aviation, 150 students, 50 faculty, 25 aircraft. So, the solid flight school anchor, which boasts about $15 million in GDP a year. Next slide. Here's a quick shot of movement. So 2008, 15,000 movements up to about averaging 45,000 every year now. So every time a plane takes off and lands, there's some landing fees, there's fuel, there's hotels, there's all the things that go with that in the local for the local economy. Next slide. Mix of traffic similar to yours, so you can any one of these aircraft, you see most of it now can land in your area, which again is moving goods and services. Next slide. Here's another approach that maybe you've heard about some of these in Niagara, so owned by 3 municipalities that they were at a similar opportunity that they could expand their airport, thinking as a regional model. So located in St. Catharines, there's also the Welland Airport as well. So the region looked at taking over and looked at what is the role of both airports, with the Niagara Regional being the anchor airport and the Welland Airport supports in other ways. So the region is taking over the airport and running it as the regional model for many reasons. Next slide. So transportation, so in and out, tourism, which is big in their area as well, obviously. The economic health and growth of the area, getting the scheduled flights going to get the ACAP funding to help support the airport, and investment to reach airport's full potential. So one of the biggest things they found that, people want to leave the area for vacations and whatnot, but when business people want to do business, they want to fly in, they want to go to their meetings, they want to invest in the real estate, they want to get in their plane, they want to leave. So they felt it was that important transportation link to get important business to the area. Next slide. Lake Simcoe Regional is under a big expansion right now. So it was 3 municipalities originally that partnered. They started out with that 5,000-foot runway, expanded to 6,000. And in 2020, the County of Simcoe bought the majority of the airport, and they are turning this into a full-service regional airport facility. Next slide. So their efforts were to support business development for activities in the region, capitalize on future opportunities to help drive the economic prosperity, create jobs, enhance transportation options. And one of the biggest things they found is when they started working together region, now they're using the asset in different ways. The terminal is now a GO bus terminal as well. So they're maximizing on the asset. What else can they do with it to complement the airport? But also now as a region, they're talking to opportunities around the world, because it's not just an airport owned by Barrie. It's actually a large regional asset that's thought of that way and that's marketed that way. Next slide. So talked about expansion, again, having a shovel-ready plan, having a good business plan. The government, different levels of governments are paying attention, and they're already receiving funding because of it to turn it into that regional asset for expansion. Waterloo's another example. Started out, again, similar to Peterborough, started out similar to what Wyerton is as well. They took 1996, the region took over the airport, created that master plan, and began implementing it. And today, there's 300 people that work on the airport, and their GDP is around 90 million. So it took that regional focus to turn it into to what it is today. Next slide. So it's operated by the region, and it is a strategic economic asset of the region. So they have many pillars that make up the regional assets that you need to invest in, and the airport is one of them to get their return. So Mount Joly in Quebec, same thing. In 2005, so the board, that board owns the airport, and it's one of the largest regional airports in Eastern Quebec. Next slide. So this was again another small airport that took a whole different view at looking at it as a regional model. So it supports again economic development for the area. So both business and leisure travel. It focuses on collaboration with regional development initiatives. So another example. Muskoka, so another one closer to home. So same thing. They looked at what should be done with their airport, similar to Wyerton and some of the other airports. Business tourism, medevac, agricultural services, forestry, firefighting. Next slide. So this is 6 municipalities that contribute to the airport, and their GDP is $40 million into the local economy. So again, thinking as a regional model, talking with other regional regions and regional airports, and making sure that they're maximizing the potential of the airport. So why regionalize? And it's a question that everybody has to ask, and all the airports that I mentioned did. Some of the advantages definitely are possibly shared management services. So you have other airports in the region. So what is the potential for these airports working together and using Wyerton as the anchor airport? So the shared management services, some bulk purchasing, equipment sharing, specialized equipment sharing, the sharing of the resources, leveraging the aerospace market. So now you're marketing all airports and using Wyerton as an anchor into the region, into the world market. So some of the benefits are the facilitation as a transportation hub for goods and tourism, business and travel, and commercial growth. So it's using it as just another tool to bring people to do business in your area. It's a tool used to attract the MROs, the aircraft mechanics, all the aerospace businesses that could establish there for travel, both within and external as well. Economic development, so attract new businesses, improve regions' ability to interact with the larger markets. One of the big areas we see is when you start thinking as a region, the Southern Ontario Airport Network that has 11 members, they're now marketing together as a group and not just individual airports alone. So we see that as another advantage to thinking as a regional model as well, to be a member of that. Looking at the collaboration with regional development initiatives. So now the airport's sitting at the table with all the various groups to make sure that they can maximize the use of the airport as well. So land assets can be leveraged to support on-site airport-related development and employment opportunities. So the economic health, very important. Allows for business development opportunities throughout the region, capitalizes on future opportunities to drive economic prosperity. Some of the things airport specific wise, so the growth in air traffic, which I've talked about SOAN, but we'll see that in the area. When you start thinking as a regional airport and marketing it that way, you'll see the growth coming along. The ACAP funding we talked about, when we're eligible for ACAP funding, they're now paying for equipment, they're paying for possible runway replacements, they pay for security fencing. So all this bodes well for, again, helping to make the airport stand on its own 2 feet. And potential charter operations, which are key, again, especially with the tourism in your area. So here's what we're recommending as next steps. So, there's a lot of information to absorb about the potential of the airport, but start with a feasibility study for regionalizing. And the study would not just look at Wyerton, but it will look at all the airports and what role they play in the region, and how that the airports can work together, for instance, on those cost-saving initiatives we talked about. But really, that would be the first step, is look at either there's an advantage or there isn't. We feel there's a big advantage to the regionalization, but answer those questions through the study. creation of a plan to move forward. So conduct a study, create a plan to move forward, develop your master plan, and that master plan would look at how is the airport going to be self-sustaining? How are the airports in the area? Could they be reducing their costs of operating and increasing the usage of those airports? And then looking at implementing a plan to move forward. So this, we feel it's a 24-month turnaround. So I think time is of the essence. COVID is here, and COVID has affected the aerospace industry like every other one, but there's great opportunity for this airport because of some of the stuff coming out of COVID as well. So we feel that's the next steps to move forward. And we also know that working across Canada with airports big and small, that they're an incredible asset, but they can't stand alone with one municipality. They need to work as a regional model to move forward. So it's a great opportunity. It should be thought of as a regional asset because it is. It brings business and goods to the region, and we feel that's important moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gervais. Council, if I could see the screen, yeah, seeing everyone now. Is there any questions of anyone on council? Oh, of course, Councilor O'Leary, you had your hand up, so we'll start with you.
Thank you,
See
Mr.
Councilor
Warden.
Robinson as well.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and thank you, Trent, for your presentation. When I was elected in 2014, the airport in Owen Sound was losing about $100,000 a year. Today, that number is about $230,000. I guess my question is, would you know how many municipal airports there are in Ontario and how many are self-sustaining? Because the information we're given, there's very, very few that are self-sustaining.
Warden, through you, I'm not sure offhand how many airports that there are in Ontario. I'm sorry, I can't remember. There is a significant number of municipal, as you're aware. I can't tell you how many of them are breaking even or not. I can tell you that we've had significant success with some of the airports that we're working with. One, we took over the small airport. They were had a deficit every year of $230,000. We took over 5 years ago, and we have them at a break-even point today. So it is possible. One of the common mistakes that that I see is that airports treat them like any other department within the municipalities, which they should in some ways, but in other ways, commonly what happens is a roads equipment operator is sent to the airport to plow the snow and cut grass, and quite often, and they're very good at it, and it's very important to be done, but quite often there's not a focus on the business development side of an airport, that you truly have to put the right people in place to have a solid business plan to move it forward. And that's very difficult to do for small municipalities because, again, they're competing, their dollars are so spread so thin, but it needs to be treated like a business, and quite often in the municipal airports, that doesn't happen.
Okay, and the second question, you had an aerial view there of all the hangars at the airport, and you said there's about 200 or 300 planes that are stationed at the airport. That's a pretty broad number. Do you know which it is? Is it 200 or 300? What is that number? Do we know?
Warden, through you, that was at Peterborough Airport. I was showing you one of the examples. So
okay.
Yeah.
Okay, my mistake. And final one, this might be for Councillor Burley, I'm not sure, but what has changed since Georgian Bluffs bought out their partner for $600,000?
Councillor Burley?
To you, Mr. Warden, many things have changed at the Warden Airport. We found that two municipalities owning an asset like the Warden Airport, we're all competing for funds for each one of our municipalities. When we took over the airport, our first task was to start bringing the infrastructure up to a somewhat of a good standard. That's what we've done the first couple of years, to not let the infrastructure go, but to replace it. Things like sewage pumps and gas pumps and all the things like that. We did spend investment and improve all that. We put a restaurant into the airport that we just never seemed to be able to, if two municipalities agree on what and how to move forward. And that was always a challenge. Those are just a few of the things that we have improved and changed the airport to where it is today.
Thank you. Thank you, Councillor Robinson.
Thank you, Mr. Warden, and through you. Trent Jervis, thank you very much for the detailed presentation. It was most enjoyable. And I did note on one of your earlier slides, you identified the catchment area and did speak a bit about that this would be a hub and this airport would support local airports. Being that there's another airport in Grey County that is a partnership between two Grey County lower tiers and one Bruce County lower tiers, I'm wondering if you could just briefly talk about potential partnerships or the synergy that may be developed through a master plan. Thank you.
Thank you, Warden Hicks, through you. I think that you know, we took a look at the airports and where they're located, and I think they all offer a distinct role in all this, and I think that the study will flush that out. But I mentioned in one of the slides about starting to collaborate, and through possible shared management services, through purchasing, through even thinking business development from a different lens. So if I have a business in Hanover, then chances are I want to fly direct to Hanover. And so that's where I think that we really need to look at the role of each airport. If Wyerton would be situated as kind of the commercial hub because it can get in the larger aircraft, then maybe one of the other airports plays a different role in the general aviation fields. So I think, again, that's what the study will flush out. I do believe there's a role for all the airports, but again, the study will flush that out. But I really feel one of the biggest areas is starting to think of them all as a regional assets, and to start the marketing and the business development, not independent, but working together for a common goal, and that's to attract business and goods to your community and allow your community members ease of access to travel out of the area.
Thank you. I don't see other hands as yet, but
Yes.
Mr. Gervais, oh, Madam Clerk.
Sorry, I do have three. I have Councillor Soever, Councillor Millen, Councillor McQueen.
Okay, and before I will acknowledge Councillor Soever next, but before we go there, I do know that we have, it will lead into this item being discussed under 6B in our agenda. And I know, Mr. Gervais, you're going to stick around for that discussion as well, correct?
Correct, Warden Hicks.
Right, so I just wonder at what point, Madam Clerk, do we transition from the presentation to actually maybe moving into 6B?
I think if we can answer the questions, or if council members have questions specifically for Mr. Gervais, then we can continue on with that. If they then flow into Savannah and Steve's report, then that's the time to transition into that report.
So that's what I'm attempting to do. And I'll just say, Councillor Soever, if you could nod, do you have a question specifically for Mr. Gervais? Or
yes.
Okay, good. Just one second. I'm going to check with Councillor Milne. You have a question specifically for Mr. Gervais as well?
No, I'll wait till we get to Savannah and Steve's report. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. And Deputy Warden McQueen?
Yeah, I can wait to that report as well.
Okay, thank you. Councillor Soever, go ahead.
Yes, and I want to thank the presenter for his report. It's very informative, and certainly I think we all recognize the economic development value of airports. But how important, my question is, how important is location? Because, you know, this airport is located at the far reaches of Grey County. And for instance, if you were coming to Blue Mountain Village, our municipality sees about 2.5 million visitors a year. Many people do fly in, but land in Collingwood or other airports, or even Pearson, because the difference in travel time from Pearson to Blue Mountains or the village is about 20 minutes. Wyerton is 20 minutes closer yet. So there are a number of airports that are closer, including would you necessarily not go through Pearson and go to Wyerton? So my question is, how important is location in making a success of an airport?
Thank you for the question through you, Warden Hicks. Location plays a factor in it, and it's one of many. Price of fuel, for instance, when you have a business jet from the U.S., you're going to spend $10,000 or $15,000 on fuel, or in some cases more. If they can save $1,800 by going 10 minutes longer, then they will. So location is very important, but it's also the services which are very important. Some airports don't have a robust fixed-based operation, which is de-icing and that sort of thing, de-icing fuel and catering and limo services and all that. So although location is important, they'll also travel a bit further if they're getting the better service. Pearson, so one of the things that Pearson's reaching capacity, and they started the Southern Ontario Airport Network because they wanted to start, they had to start doing something, and they wanted to push the regional traffic out, and they wanted to push the general aviation, so the private jets, out as much as they can to other regional airports so that they can make room for the wide body aircraft coming in. So the wide body service was at about 30%. They want to get it up to 80%. So to do that, they have to get rid of some flights. So there's an example where Pearson have just lately again raised their landing fees and so their movement fees for these smaller aircraft like the business jets, because they don't want them there. There's no room for them. Now today they'll probably take them because of COVID, but when things return to normal, so it just won't be easy for these private jets to get to Pearson. And even if they can get in, they're going to be getting slots that are 2 in the morning and 1 in the morning, that sort of thing. So not prime time. So these airports, regional airports, have the opportunity to grab onto some of that business, and some of them are seeing it, like Simcoe as an example. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Council, what I'm going to suggest, we've been sitting for an hour and a half and beyond. I'm going to suggest that we take a very short break. Can I, 5 or 10? Nod if you prefer 5. I see a hand for 5. How many people prefer 10? A few. It's about equal. So I'm going to say let's go for 5. So let's just take a very, very short break, and we'll come back and we'll move right into item 6B, the regional airport study, and hopefully we can still be in reasonable time for our second presenter, Savannah. So let's do, it is now 11:08. Let's say at 15:15. We'll be back. All right, short break.
Just done.
Excellent. We'll get started. I know a few people are still joining us. So we'll go straight to item 6B, the regional airport study. Savannah will be on deck. It's moved by Councillor Burley, seconded by Councillor Carlton. Savannah, you have the floor.
Excellent. Thank you so much, Warden and Council. Steve's with me today. He's going to kick things off because he really, in our department, is in charge of our investment portfolio, and that's why we're here today, because we see this as one of our key investment opportunities. So with no further ado, Steve will kick us off.
Hi, Steve. Good morning. You're looking very dapper.
Thank you. So is everyone else. Thank you. Thank you, Council, Warden. So in 2018, we started looking at Grey County's assets from an investment opportunity point of view. And at the time, we were all collectively focused on attracting nuclear suppliers to our region. And I think we've been very successful at that. But we also have other strengths and opportunities, and those are focused around wealth creating sectors. And those sectors, they're kind of you don't always hear them talk this way, but manufacturing, agriculture, and tourism, and now retirement or people attraction are all wealth producing. They bring wealth into the community. And in general, those sectors we're doing well in Grey County, and in particular, the housing developments. Our economic development goal is always to seek out and cultivate economic diversity and determine those unique competitive advantages. Looking to the future, we need to be asking what new industry business parks are being planned, what new commercial and residential areas are going to be planned, what other opportunities do we have a unique advantage in? And this is all happening faster and faster with population growth. So today, when I look at Grey County, the most significant investment opportunities I see for Grey County are the continued Bruce Power supplier growth and expansion, the TC Energy $4 billion investment in Meaford with the potential green energy spinoffs and assessment growth, the Mennonite Metal Shop cluster in South Grey and Grey Highlands, which has the potential, in my mind, to attract large industrial players to the region, hotel tourism, in particular the Talisman Resort area, housing developments, the continued look at housing developments, and then the Wyerton International Airport. It's a very unique airport. There are not less than 10 other Ontario-based airports with 400 acres of developable land that can land a 737. And I'll note that airports create and support all 4 of our wealth creating sectors. So sometimes that's hard to believe that these opportunities are real. And so we go out and knock on doors, we cold call, and we have exploratory discussions. It doesn't mean it's more research, but you actually look people in the eye and they can tell you right away, yes, that might be of interest. No, it's not. So I don't normally share these discussions because I think it can raise expectations unduly, but it's through some of these discussions that convinced me that the Wyerton International Airport has potential for our region. So specifically, Viking Air Q400 series aircraft manufacturer, that's the Dash 8 for anyone who's older like me, they are moving their operation out of Toronto. They invited us to make a presentation, and that's a potential 600 jobs in a large manufacturing facility. They haven't made that decision yet, and I'm sure there's many people they're talking to, but their concern was not about the airport or its location. It had more to do about labor force and executive quality of life. We spoke to another aviation manufacturer, and at the time we met them through the nuclear supply chain. They were interested in becoming a nuclear supplier, and then we realized that they are into precision tooling, which is those industries sector manufacturers do the nuclear as well as aviation because it's precision. We toured that gentleman through the Mennonite shops, some of the Mennonite shops in Southgate and Grey Highlands. And he was kind of blown away by that. I think anyone who does that gets blown away. But he was really impressed with the opportunity to partner potentially with them, and particularly our region's focus and investment on apprenticeship training, which he doesn't see happening in the GTA. Airline Routes, there is potential to connect with existing airline routes from another northern communities. Of course, this is going to require security equipment and airport terminal improvements. International tourism, there are air travelers that are interested in Bruce Grey region for destination vacations. This requires roofed accommodation, and why we were supportive of the Wyerton feasibility study for their resort. I still, and to this day, always ask about winter tourism and who would that appeal to, but they are convinced that year-round tourism is possible. And when I say it's not just the peninsula, it's right across Grey and Bruce. So someone who comes from Europe and stays in our region, they are going to go to the Blue Mountains. They're going to go all over the place. And finally, we went to the Aerospace conference in Ottawa, and we talked to a lot of different people. And yes, we had a lot of people just say, no, I don't think that's real. But we did talk to a couple that thought that might be of interest, in particular a logistics carrier and cargo with interest in a location as potential cost savings. So they do not see the distance, particularly these MRO companies do not see distance as an issue. So we've seen some of this investment interest in the potential of the airport. We've seen how this unique asset, because it is unique, can be leveraged and complement our manufacturing sector and our tourism sector. and have an impact right across Gray. And yes, we have a lot more work to do, and we need to have a plan, and we need to invest. But most importantly, we need to have a commitment and direction, because that's frankly been missing. So I'll leave it to Savannah.
Thanks, Steve. Yeah, so our staff, we have been committed to this, like Steve said, for 3 years now, because we continue to see the value, and the further conversations we have, we see more value in really pulling all of the region together, because those are the questions that we're being asked by these investors when they are coming here. And we are touring them right across Grey County and now into Bruce County as well, because it really does take a region to support an asset of this size. But that also means that the asset of this size will be able to give back to the region as a whole. So what we're asking for council today is the ability to do a regional airport study so that we can truly understand exactly what this asset is capable of, what changes can be made, what needs to be done differently from what's been done over the past years, so that we can understand the realness, the value, and actually have an action plan to go forward. We're not asking you to implement the action plan by any means. At this point, we purely want to be able to look at it. We truly believe that Trent and Lumex, they are the person to do that. They are the company to do that because they do have a strong record in regionalization, in looking at bringing airports to, as Councillor O'Leary asked about, within break-even point. Which we know is a big deal for airports. They're not generally something that makes money. They're normally something that costs a lot of money, but there are ways to make them self-sustaining. And we really truly believe that Trent and Lumex are the company to be able to look at that and figure that out for us. So we do have a commitment from RTO 7 of 50% of the study cost to be able to do this, but the timeline is tight because their funding on fiscal year runs out March 31st. So that is why you will see such a long recommendation in front of you about asking permission to take our 2021 budget of $10,000 and spend that now ahead of budget deliberation, so that we can get that study done and realize that $20,000 contribution from RTO 7, as well as $10,000 from Georgian Bluffs. So given the investment opportunity here, the economic development asset that we see this region, staff are very confident that there's more to know and that we don't have all of that information yet, which is why we want to be able to do this study and bring that back to you in the new year, in the spring, for further direction and to determine whether regionalization does make sense or doesn't. So that's what our report is about today. And I'm sure there are lots of questions, and we do have Trent still here because we know the investment side and the economic development side and regional side, but certainly not the airport itself side. So you have all three of us here if you do have questions, but we're certainly looking for your support to do this study so that we can better understand the asset.
Excellent. Thank you, Savannah, and thank you, Steve. I have from the last list, Councillor Milne and Deputy Warden McQueen. So Councillor Milne, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And just a quick comment and then a couple questions. One paragraph, or part of a paragraph in the report, it says Lumex is also proposing to undertake a regional assessment of the municipal airports within this study in order to develop a coordinated strategy and building on synergies while finding efficiencies. That's almost breathtaking. I mean, speechwriters across the world applaud you. That was amazing. But anyway, nonetheless, I do support doing the study, absolutely. Because we do need, as Savannah and Steve have rightly outlined, we need the information, absolutely, to do that. But my two questions are, first of all, where's Bruce County's contribution? And the second question is, and no disrespect to Mr. Gervais and his broad knowledge of the industry, obviously, but they currently operate the airport in Wyerton. And I'm just wondering, how objective really can they be if they already have one oar in the water and now they're being asked for, do a study to tell us whether we should put both oars in the water? I just need a little bit of help around that. I don't want to say conflict of interest, but that close association there. Can you help me with that, please?
Savannah?
Yes, absolutely. Through you, Mr. Warden. Bruce County has been involved in a couple conversations that Mayor has put together through Georgian Bluffs. At this point, we've not asked them for a contribution, and we hadn't intended to ask them for a contribution towards this because they are just now learning about this as an opportunity, where we have been working on it and investing in it for the last couple of years. So we didn't think it was appropriate to ask them for a contribution, but we are certainly asking next steps after this is that Trent would go to Bruce County and start the conversation with them while the study is happening, so that when we do come out with some findings, they have the information that they need to start that conversation more broadly about what it could look like to be involved. But at this point, it's been very preliminary. There is certainly interest to look at it because they do see the potential for the peninsula and over to the shores on Lake Huron. But that is where we're at right now. So that is next step after this council presentation. He'll be headed to Bruce County with that request to start sharing the information. And in terms of Trent might also have some answers for this about our request to look at Trent specifically for it. But what we see, given the timelines that we have and given the knowledge that he brings, he was hired by Georgian Bluffs because of that knowledge, and he has been working intimately with the airport. So he's able to start us at a position where we wouldn't be able to start right off the bat by bringing somebody in who has no background in Wyerton at all. And there have been studies done in the past and they sit on shelves because they don't have the proper knowledge and the proper approach. So what the hope is, by having somebody who's actually invested their company in this airport, they can help us start ahead of the game, but they can also see where, because we know that Trent does not believe that how things are operating right now are how they should continue. And I don't want to put words in your mouth. So Trent, I don't know if you had anything that you wanted to add to that, but you definitely don't want to see status quo. We don't want to see status quo with the airport. That is for sure. Do you have anything to add?
Yeah, thanks, Savannah. Warden Hicks, through you. So I just wanted to mention that currently, right now, we don't have a long-term commitment on managing the airport. We're in on a month-to-month basis, and we were asked by Georgian Bluffs to step in to help after their manager left. So for me, to date, I've been involved in a number of meetings and conversations and traveled many times to the area. And we actually haven't charged anything for this work. I have a real passion for when I see opportunity for municipalities. And so, you know, as far as conflict goes, I just don't feel that there is one, because we don't have a contract to speak with Georgian Bluffs. We're helping them on an interim basis, and the study is going to be vetted by many individuals for that to ensure that it's transparent. And the study isn't looking at, you know, who should manage the airport. It's really about what's the opportunity to the region. So it's not the idea is not to address the governance of the airport. It's just really to look at is there an opportunity or isn't there to become a regional airport and to look at a regional model for the airports. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Gervais. Next, I acknowledge Deputy Warden McQueen.
Well, thank you, Mr. Warden. And just following up with Councillor Millen, he sort of took my two comments, but just following up with Bruce County, that was sort of my thought is if it's being looked upon as a regional airport, then regionally, I think Bruce County has certainly great interest in this. And, you know, I would certainly prefer to see them part of the paying for part of the cost of the study. Going back to 2017, we did go through Think Compass, through Think Canada, and we paid out $10,000 at that time to look at the economic benefit of that. And I know we had Grey County has spent some money there, and I don't know if some of that information will help on the back side of the study or looking at this, but maybe there's a comment there from Steve. I'm not sure. I know they did do quite a bit of work back then in 2018 and on and that sort of thing. And I know they were at a presentation that I attended back in September in Shell Lake and Georgia Bluffs. So I guess the question is, can we push Bruce County to sort of come to the table with being part of this? Can we make that request? And number two is that information, good background information. Thank you.
Steve?
Thank you, Warden. Sure, that information really, when we talk about the investment opportunities around Viking Air and some of those others, that was cultivated by Think Canada in the background and other discussions. So all that information is and contacts are available to be shared with the group in the study. Yes.
I'll just add to that it was really the FDI. That's what their focus has been on. So looking at the foreign direct investment and what it takes for foreign direct investment, that certainly helped get our feet wet around there. So we are starting to understand that, but now we need to actually realize the asset and understand what that asset looks like. So that's the two kind of parts that are playing in this.
Okay, Madam Clerk, I don't see anyone else, do you?
Yes, sir. I have Councillor Soever, and then I have Councillor O'Leary.
Okay, Councillor Soever?
Yes, and my questions were much along the same lines as Councillor Milne and Councillor McQueen's, particularly with regards to Bruce County, because obviously a lot of their tourism sector is located quite close to the airport, and they would be one of the primary beneficiaries. I also had a concern about any potential conflict of interest, but Mr. Gervais' comments on his current relationship with Georgian Bluffs have, somewhat ameliorated my concerns. However, I think we do need to be careful in that obviously his firm is well qualified to run the potential airport, and any recommendations he might make in his report with regard to that, I wouldn't want them to preclude him bidding on a contract to manage the airport, because he seems to have done so well with some of the others.
Thank you, sir. Councillor O'Leary.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I just wanted to comment on something that I think should be on the top burner here. We lose money on our long-term care homes because we're committed to our seniors, and I'd like to think we're about to make a big splash on affordable housing and attainable housing, because we're looking after our most vulnerable. And when I look at the airport, the people that use airports, that's a long ways from looking after our most vulnerable. And I just want to make that point that the feasibility study is going to be huge for me when we look at this report, but I'm certainly not against getting the report. And I certainly never get sick of the enthusiasm from Savannah and Steve, so thanks so much.
Ditto. Councillor Potter.
Thank you, and I guess just to follow up on that, I'm certainly in favor of doing a study, but I wonder if it isn't a little too narrow in that we're looking at one airport and one option. And I wonder if we need to look at this, if we're really looking at it on a regional basis. Why are we not looking beyond just the Wyerton Airport? Maybe it should be part of a regional strategy. And secondly, years ago we were hearing how the Collingwood Airport was doomed to failure, and now it's going stronger than ever, and it has gone into private ownership. And I perhaps there's a model there, and I'm by no means an expert on it, but maybe there's a model there that we should be looking at as to how we could operate an airport more efficiently and more prosperously. But I'm with Councillor O'Leary. I don't like the idea that people who can afford an airplane are able to fly in and out at a relatively modest fee when we don't have enough housing for young families who are trying to locate here and trying to find work here.
Right, and Councillor Potter, I would point out that Clearview Airport, which borders my old family dairy farm, is not that far off either.
If I might add too, and Edenvale. So, they're all within close proximity.
Savannah?
Sure, yes, through you, Warden. We certainly want, as Trent had mentioned, to look at Wyerton being the hub, but what does that mean for all of the others? So this will not just look at Wyerton, it's definitely looking at Wyerton, with all of the other regional airports in mind, and seeing what opportunities exist there. And the focus very much being on that business investment side. So trying to find out what opportunities there are to enhance the business and economic drivers in the region, to provide more jobs and to provide more opportunities for our residents and future residents who will come in as well. So that the focus, even though tourism is certainly a component of it, and it will be a big component of it, we don't want to forget about the business side and the MRO side of this as well, because we really see this as a dual benefit. So we just wanted to remind that as well, but that will all come through the study.
Excellent, thank you. I think we've had good discussion. I don't see any other hands, Madam Clerk. I'm looking to call the question if there are no other.
I don't see any more.
Excellent. I'd like to call the question on receiving this report and proceeding with the regional airport study. Is there anyone opposed? I don't see any, so I'm going to say that that is carried. Thank you very, very much. We'll go back now to the second delegation, Chad Richards. I saw him during the break.
Yep, I'm here, Mr. Ward.
Right? Are you going to be introducing him, Savannah? Okay.
Yes, absolutely. Thank you, Warden and Council. Very pleased to have Chad Richards here with us today from the Nuclear Innovation Institute. And a good segue, considering we were just talking about investment opportunities and airport and how we came across this. NII and all of the work with Bruce Power has certainly been part of that. And Chad is new to the NII and is the director for the Clean Energy Frontier program. And as you might recall, a couple years ago, James Cognac was here in front of council looking to develop a tri-county regional liaison committee with Bruce Gray and Huron to help bring the suppliers to the area. And have since, we've had over 60 suppliers located to the area thanks to regional effort, which has been really exciting. And because of the success there, the group and Bruce Power and NII have seen opportunities for transition. So that transition is beginning, and we wanted to make sure that with council had the opportunity to hear from Chad and see where that transition is going and determine our support moving forward as we continue through this. So I will not take any more time because Chad, I know you have a presentation and lots of information to share about the Clean Energy Frontier program. So I will turn it over to you.
Absolutely. Thanks very much, Savannah. And I'm just going to share my screen and hopefully we don't run into any technical glitches. Okay, can everybody see that just fine?
Yes, I can. Yep. No, I can see it.
Okay, very good. So I'd like to thank you all for having me here today before council, and I'd like to start by congratulating you, Mr. Warden, on your election as warden last week. Very excited for the year ahead and looking forward to working with you. And through you, I'd also like to thank Deputy Warden McQueen for all that he's done over the past year. As Savannah mentioned, I'm new to NII, and I come from a role where I was working very closely with Warden McQueen, and he was certainly a pleasure to work with, and looking forward to working with him as well over the next year. And to the rest of council and all of Grey County staff, thanks very much for everything that you're doing to keep local residents safe, informed, and healthy through the COVID-19 pandemic. I know all too well that a lot of the work that you're doing doesn't happen directly in the public, but most certainly has public benefits. So thank you very much for that. As we move into 2021, we need to remain diligent and stay focused on the effects of COVID-19 and adhere to public health measures. But with promising news of vaccines on the horizon, I think we're in a position now where we can look ahead and start to talk about opportunities on how we can work together to recover from the economic impacts of COVID-19. And I really believe that the Clean Energy Frontier program is one of those opportunities. So some background and context on the program. The Clean Energy Frontier program is the successor to the Nuclear Economic Development and Innovation Initiative. It's a mouthful. And that's what Savannah mentioned. And it was established in 2016 with the goal of attracting clean energy companies to the Tri-County region of Bruce, Grey, and Huron. And the goal was that these companies would locate here, establish a local presence, and be significant parts of communities across the region. And again, as Savannah mentioned, it was immensely successful. More than 60 companies are now actively operating in the region, and many of them have become integral parts of the communities that they operate in. A good example of a local success story for Grey is BWXT and Brotec, which are now operating in the former PPG building in Owen Sound. And across the region, these clean energy companies are providing jobs, they're supporting local charities and community efforts, and really building a better future for generations to come. And since 2016, Grey has been a really integral part of the work that the Innovation Initiative was doing. Grey has been providing advice and input and doing a lot of work through the regional steering committee that guides the work of the program. The steering committee brings together municipal leaders and other groups from across the region to ensure that we truly take a local approach to the work that we're doing. As we transition the Nuclear Economic Development Initiative to the work of the Clean Energy Frontier program, we'll continue to rely on Grey County for support, advice, and input on the work that we're doing. As we move forward, so last month we relaunched the Nuclear Economic Development Initiative as the Clean Energy Frontier Program. So really it is the same program, we're just rebranding it and taking a little bit more of a different focus. It's really about building on the success of the Innovation Initiative and taking a little bit more of an outward approach and really in reality bragging about what we've done here in the region and the success we have and the key role that we play when it comes to clean energy targets or environmental targets for the province and for the country for that matter. So our message is really that a strong, healthy future starts right here in Canada's clean energy frontier region, and that there's no path to a net zero future without what happens right here in the three counties. With Bruce Power in our backyard, more than 60 clean energy companies in the region, and existing transmission infrastructure that connects our region to the rest of the province, and most importantly, with strong local leadership, we are primed for success in a new economy as we emerge from COVID-19. That said, while we all know the opportunities that exist right here at home, we need the rest of the province and the rest of the country, for that matter, to know it too. This will be one of the program's new key goals. By using different and innovative digital storytelling methods and communication with different constituencies, the program will position the Tri-County region as Canada's clean energy frontier. That's really the goal of what we're doing here. Some of the other program goals and objectives are the program is not going to lose sight of the important work that still has to be done here at home. We'll continue to support the existing network of clean energy companies, and obviously, if there are new opportunities for companies to expand to the region, the program will still connect those companies with the work that it was previously doing, and encourage that we encourage and attract new business to come up to the region. And the fact that the program is guided by a regional steering committee that consists of a strong group of local leaders ensures that these opinions and concerns are replicated in the work that we do, the work that the program does. The program will also look at new ways for companies to potentially support other local industries. A lot of these clean energy companies came up to the region to do work at Bruce Power, and it's important that they're here and operating and doing that, but the program will also explore ways that perhaps they can service different industries and different companies across the region to kind of deepen that local footprint. And then this is all on top of the public-facing work that the program will do to encourage positive perceptions of the region and build networks of support across different industries and in fact all levels of government. So we recognize that our biggest strength that we have is the support that exists at the community level and the support that exists amongst local leadership like yourselves. So throughout this presentation, I've referenced the critical role played by the regional steering committee. I really can't understate that. It's incredibly important that we continue to work through this committee, and Greg will continue to be an integral part of that work. Since joining the NII and becoming director of the program in late October, I've been working one-on-one with steering committees just to ensure that as we move forward with this new approach, that we're all aligned and we're all on the same page, and that really what the program is going to do aligns with the visions of the Tri-County region individually and with the different groups that sit on the committee. So I'm here today to ask that Grey County Council consider the adoption of a resolution that would recognize Grey County as part of Canada's clean energy frontier. We'll be making similar requests to Bruce and Huron. Grey County is actually the first council that we're going to make this request. This will signal to the rest of the province that our region is ready to work together, to build together, and to recover together. As we begin to recover from the effects of COVID-19, we need a new kind of thinking. Rather than fighting the same battles of the past, we need to face off and meet the challenges of the future. Mr. Chair, in your inaugural address to Council, you quoted the iconic words of Wayne Gretzky, "Skate to where the puck is going, not to where it's been." The truth is that our region is where the puck is going. We have a tremendous opportunity to be innovators and leaders in Ontario and across Canada. All we need to do is keep our stick on the ice, get into position, and fire it into the back of the net. So with that, I will end my presentation, and I'm happy to answer any questions that councillors may have.
Thank you. How could we not support you with such a beautiful hockey analogy? Councillors, any questions?
Councillor Desai.
Go ahead, Councillor Desai.
Thank you, Warden Hicks. First of all, I just want to mention, Chad, it's nice having a delegation that's closer to my age than the general. And I think I may have got myself in enough trouble with that. So I'll move on to my questions. So one of the things that's a key strategic priority in not just Grey County, but also in a number of the lower tiers, the key sectors are agriculture and tourism. How would you envision the program working with those key strategic priorities in Grey County and the lower tiers?
Absolutely. So that speaks to one of the things that we hope the program will do is these companies, a lot of them came up to win work with Bruce Power, but we're really looking to be that bridge to other industries. There's with 60 plus companies working in an innovative field like nuclear, there's a lot of opportunity to work across industries. So we're going to be doing a lot of work to really be that bridge to new industries. And I think there's a lot of opportunity there. The fact of the matter is that really these industries just haven't talked to each other. So if we can get them in a room and get them talking to one another, I think there's a lot of opportunity there. And that's going to be one of the things the program will focus on for sure.
So Madam Clerk, I'm looking to you for guidance around the best way to bring, I guess, a motion for a resolution that's been requested to recognize us as part of clean energy frontier.
Yes, I think Savannah's going to answer that, but I think there is actually an intent on staff's part to bring back a report on this topic for council's consideration. Savannah?
Excellent. Thank you. Yes, that was going to be our ask of you, is that you'd allow us to bring back a report in January with the resolution included, along with information about what specifically this will mean for Grey and what our role will be, and why we see this as important. So if that's okay with you, we will get working on that report and bring it back next month for you. And then the resolution would be able to go through that way.
Mr. Richards, I'm assuming that would be acceptable for your purposes?
That sounds great. And I should have mentioned that in my presentation, Savannah. Savannah had let me know that would be the approach moving forward. So that sounds great.
Okay, that's terrific. Anyone else have questions?
Mr. Warden?
Yes, Councillor Desai, is that?
I do have a couple more questions if that's okay.
Please go ahead.
Thank you. So Chad, thanks for that answer. So I guess the other question is you are asking us to pass a resolution recognizing Grey County as part of the clean energy frontier. Could you speak a little to the benefits that Grey County could count on by being part of that clean energy frontier?
Absolutely. I think there's the benefits are really, there are quite a few. I think that in terms of a reputational benefit, I think that it really is quite significant. It's an opportunity to show that the region as a whole is working together. It shows that synergy across county boundaries. I think that, you know, the problems facing somebody on the right-hand side of the Bruce Grey line and somebody on the left-hand side are really quite the same. So I think that it's a way for Grey County to really be Bruce Grey and Huron altogether really to be innovators and recognize that a regional recovery effort works across boundaries. And I think that there's again, with that reputational benefit, there's something exciting about being part of something like a clean energy frontier, where really if you look at the priorities of provincial and federal governments, we're looking at greening industries, and being part of that new age innovation, I think, is something that has a lot of benefit for Grey.
Mr. Warden, I do have one last question. I do want to show my appreciation to Bruce Power for the leadership and the community supports that they've provided during the pandemic, whether it was in terms of the PPE donations that they'd made and organizing PPE purchases for small businesses across the county, or whether it was in the form of donating funds to local food banks. Chad, in his presentation, he mentioned a number of other companies that had joined hands with Bruce Power to provide community supports during this pandemic. I've been unfamiliar, or I'm less familiar with these companies that have provided these supports. So I was wondering if Chad could speak a little more to the supports that these companies provided during the pandemic.
Absolutely, happy to. So yeah, obviously, I mean the benefit that we have from having Bruce Power right in our backyard, and the amazing work that they've done over the course of the pandemic to provide PPE definitely is massive. But I do think the suppliers across the region are doing what they can. Obviously, they're not as, they don't have quite the firepower that an organization like Bruce Power has. But I look at different innovative ways to support communities. For example, NPX, which is a nuclear supply chain company, they're working with the United Way of Bruce Grey to develop a local dashboard to provide information on different needs of the charity in the region. And I think that what the program will be squarely focused on is ensuring that that these companies that are here deepen those footprints, and that we can connect them with opportunities to be more heavily involved in the region.
Councillor Desai, again?
Yep, thank you, Mr. Warden. No further questions.
Very welcome. Madam Clerk, I don't see anyone else. Do you?
No, sir.
Excellent. So with that, I'll thank you, Mr. Richards, and we can look forward to seeing something come back from staff, I guess, in the next month.
That's great. Thank you for having me here today.
Thank you for being here. Okay. We're moving on to item 6C now, which is proposed amendments to DC charges bylaws. It is being moved by Councillor O'Leary and seconded by Councillor Potter. Who do we have on that? Kevin Wepler, I guess, right?
Thank you, Mr. Moore. I can start off. It's Randy here.
Okay.
And if I miss anything, Kevin can help fill in any gaps. So good morning, Mr. Warden and county councillors. In September of this year, council supported in principle proposed changes to the county's development charges bylaws that would help to encourage more rental housing, nonprofit housing, and detached additional dwelling units by exempting these developments from a county development charge. Other proposed changes included alignment with some of the recent changes to the Development Charges Act, supporting incentives related to the Community Improvement Plan program, and considering development charge credits for qualifying redevelopment projects. for example, converting commercial buildings to residential uses. Notice of the public meeting was circulated and posted in a local newspaper in accordance with the Development Charges Act, and the public meeting was held on October 22nd. No comments were received prior to the public meeting or following the public meeting. Some revisions are being proposed to the development charge bylaw amendments. However, staff are of the view that the revisions are minor in nature and maintain the spirit and intent of the changes presented at the public meeting, and therefore we are recommending that an additional public meeting is not required. Just to touch on some of the highlights of the proposed revisions to the bylaw amendments that's outlined in the staff report. Most of the revisions clarify defined terms and add some further details regarding how these exemptions will be administered. Definitions regarding land lease and life lease developments have been clarified by using definitions under existing legislation. And land lease or life lease developments would qualify for a deferral development charges until time of occupancy, but they would not qualify for an exemption to county development charges. We also clarified in the report that nonprofit housing developments, making sure that they capture the nonprofit housing providers in our region as previously supported by County Council. Staff are recommending that nonprofit housing developments would be exempt outright. And what that means is that they would not be required to enter into an agreement to be exempt from county development charges, as staff feel there are existing safeguards in place that would ensure that nonprofit housing units would remain as such. For purpose-built rental housing and what we're calling community improvement plan incentivized developments, staff created a new class of conditional exemption, whereby payment of the county development charges would be deferred from the start of construction to the end of a period of 20 years after occupancy. If the units do not remain as rental units, for example, or if there is a change in the original exempted use within that 20-year period, so say, for example, if someone proposed to convert the rental units to condo units, then the county would be able to require payment of the county development charges, which would be based on the charges due at time of building permit with any applicable interest. This is to address Council's previous comments to ensure that if exemptions are being provided for these types of developments, making sure that they actually remain as rental housing units for a period of time. These would be administered through agreements between the county and the developer, which we are calling deferral and conditional exemption agreements. And these agreements, what we're proposing is that they would be registered on title and would stand in priority of any encumbrance later registered on that title. And there was a typo in the report. I put in there any encumbrance. It's any encumbrance later registered on that title. So any encumbrance is registered after the registration agreement is what we're recommending this agreement would stand in priority of that. With the recent changes to the Development Charges Act requiring deferrals of development charges for rental housing, nonprofit housing, and institutional developments, we think that these types of agreements being registered on title will become more of a standard practice across the province. Therefore, we see an opportunity to communicate and provide some education for developers, lawyers, financial institutions about what these deferral agreements actually mean, and to not be surprised when they start seeing some of these types of agreements on title. So that's something that we just wanted to highlight as part of that with respect to the agreements. The other aspects from administration side for these agreements is that the owner of the land would also be required to notify the county prior to selling or transferring ownership to ensure that the county can take steps to bind the new owners to the provisions of the agreement. The definition for purpose-built rental housing, what we've done is we pointed to the definition in the Development Charge Act and regulations. And that definition is a building or structure with 4 or more dwelling units, all of which are intended for use as residential premises. The definition has also been clarified to indicate that purpose-built rentals do not include land lease or life lease developments, commercial resort units, or units associated with a hotel, motel, inn, lodge, or hostel, and would ensure that these units are not being used for short-term accommodation. The amendments also clarify the exemption of county development charges related to developments that are approved to receive incentives through an approved community improvement plan. With respect to the exemptions regarding additional dwelling units, now that all the changes to the Development Charges Act have been proclaimed, and those were proclaimed, I believe it was on September 18th, staff are recommending that the exemptions for additional dwelling units align with the exemptions under the Development Charges Act by just referring to the Act itself. This would still exempt additional dwelling units proposed either within, attached, or detached to an existing residential unit, as well as a new residential unit, subject to the restrictions outlined under the Development Charges Act. And the provisions for the additional dwelling units under the Act are shown in the tables that we've copied under pages 5 and 6 of the report. In terms of other proposed changes, staff are recommending that the development charge deferral policy be revised to include the administrative requirements associated with that deferral and conditional exemption agreement, and will identify at a minimum the requirements identified as highlighted earlier. These matters will be included in the policy prior to bringing it forward for council's consideration. Should council support the proposed amendments to the county's development charge bylaws, there will be a potential loss in anticipated development charge revenue going forward for the period of the current development charge background study. Staff had previously estimated that this could be approximately $250,000 to $300,000 on an average annual basis. However, we noted that some of the proposed amendments are difficult to estimate the potential revenue loss. There has been an increase recently in proposed rental housing developments, either through pre-submission consultations or recent applications, which is fantastic news because they're desperately needed. And therefore, the potential loss in development charge revenue could be higher than the estimated amounts. These amendments, however, align with council's objectives to encourage more affordable housing options throughout the county, including encouraging more rental housing and nonprofit housing. Staff will continue to monitor this, and should the vacancy rate return to healthy levels, council could consider reinstating development charges for purpose-built rental housing. So should committee of the whole support the proposed revisions as outlined in this report, staff will finalize those amendments and a revised deferral policy and bring that back for council's consideration in January. And I don't know if I've missed anything, Kevin, if you have anything further to add or if there's any further questions, but we'd be happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Randy. Kevin, is there anything you wish to add?
No, Randy's done a really good job. Just the item about deferral agreements, I think we'd end up in this with anyway, based on where the Development Charges Act is, we're required for example, for profit builds of these, we would have to have a deferral plan for them. So again, I think we'd end up in the same situation here, except this is just a deferral with an exemption carrot that the county's putting forward to try to encourage these builds. So.
Thank you, Kevin. Council, any questions?
I have Councillor Millen.
Councillor Millen, go right ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you, Randy, for your report. I think I may have asked this question before, but I'll ask it again. You said the potential losses, are estimated $250,000 or thereabouts, could be potentially annually. Does the Development Charges Act not require that if you're going to give exemptions, that the foregone funds that would have been raised have to be put back into the fund from some other source? Does that still apply, or am I interpreting that wrong? And yeah, the Red Wings are doing really good this year. They haven't lost a game yet. I just had to get that in there.
Yeah, excellent. Things that are exempted are not part of and do not require us to provide like a grant in lieu. It's where we start exempting stuff that or saying the development charge isn't due, where it's actually in the development charges to be collected, is where we've entered in and provided a grant in lieu. So currently under our development charges, we don't have anything in there for non-for-profits. Like example, for a Habitat for Humanity build, we would then require, if we wanted to waive those charges, then provide a grant in lieu. But exempting, we've exempted other builds in the county's development charges. We don't enter into that, no, and it's factored into the development.
Okay. Very good. Thank you.
Okay. Any other questions from council? I don't see any, then I'm going to call the question. Is there anyone opposed to the motion before you? That is now carried. Council, it is now 12:15. And Madam Clerk, I'm looking at you and I'm looking at faces and I'm wondering if people want to take a break now, push on, or break for lunch altogether. What is the wish of council? Anyone want to speak up to that? I see a nod from Councillor Woodbury, or is he just looking up and down?
Well, for myself, I'd appreciate, 15, 20-minute break for something to eat. That would be good.
Yeah, that sounds like lunch. And if there's going to be lunch, you're lucky because I'm a slow eater. And so 15 minutes for me to actually consume something will not work. So I'm going to suggest a little bit, if we are breaking for lunch, I'm going to suggest a little bit longer than that. 25 minutes. Would that be okay with everyone? If you agree, just nod your head. If you disagree, then shake no. I see mostly nods. Okay, so if we're going for 25 minutes, I now have 12:07. So could we say
12:30?
Sorry, 12:30? Does 12:30 work for everyone? Okay, so 12:30 on the clock. We'll be back. We'll take a break until then. Turn off your microphones and video, and we'll see you at 12:30. Hello, everyone. Push along, get things started. We are dealing with item 6D now, which is the update on changes to the Endangered Species Act, the county's comments with respect to that. That item is moved by Councillor Burley and seconded by Councillor Carlton. And I believe, Randy, you have this day, or is it going to be Scott?
Scott's going to take this one, Mr. Warden.
Okay, thank you. Scott, you have the floor.
Yeah, thank you, Warden Hicks and members of council. So what you have before you is an update report on the changes to the Endangered Species Act. And I will say I had significant help on this report from Hiba Hussein and Randy in our department. So I'd thank the two of them. And if you see my eyes dart away from the screen, it's because I'm getting a message that I've gone off track with some of my information from them. So I'll try to keep attention to both. But yeah. Council may recall that in both February and May of 2019, we had some reports through Council on some of the proposed changes at that time to the Endangered Species Act that the Ontario government was looking at making. And through those reports, the county submitted comments back to the government on those documents. I suspect some of these changes would have progressed quicker, but with the current pandemic situation, obviously a lot of things have gotten delayed. What we have before us is sort of a follow-up to those two in looking at the establishment of new regulations with respect to what's being called the Species at Risk Conservation Fund and the Species at Risk Conservation Trust. So it would be the Conservation Trust that is obviously administering the Conservation Fund. And more specifically, what the government has looked at this stage is regulations for 6 very specific species at this stage: butternut trees, barn swallows, eastern meadowlarks, bobolinks, eastern whippoorwills, and Blanding's turtles, specific in the Canadian Shield region for the Blanding's turtles. Certainly, the first 4, the butternuts, the barn swallows, the bobolinks, and the eastern meadowlarks, are fairly commonly found in Grey County, and we do encounter these species as we're looking at development projects across the county. What this new system would allow for is it would give proponents, whether they be a private developer or whether it even be the county looking at, say, a new building or infrastructure project, the ability to get approval from the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks to pay into a fund which would then allow us to either remove or harm habitat related to one of the aforementioned 6 species. So these types of authorizations aren't completely new. We have seen in the past certain scenarios where, say, somebody was allowed to cut down a butternut tree in exchange for planting 2 butternut trees elsewhere. However, what this new process would do is, rather than requiring the proponent then in that example to plant those 2 butternut trees elsewhere, it would allow the proponent to pay into a fund, and those funds would then be administered to third-party groups that would undertake what the province calls those beneficial actions. So as I said, the Conservation Trust would administer those funds. They wouldn't be spending the money directly. Rather, they would be doling that money out to third parties that would then either look to establish habitat elsewhere, to say rehabilitate habitat elsewhere, or to put the money towards specific research that is going to the recovery of these 6 species. They have released funding formulas for each of the 6 species. They are fairly complicated. We've shared one of the funding formulas in the report for you with an example on the eastern whippoorwill, but I won't go through that in detail. The province has been very explicit that it's still the Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks that's making the authorizations. So as a proponent, you're still dealing with the ministry staff, but it's the board that's doling out the money. Now, the board themselves can't purchase property or can't do projects on their own. They have to go through third parties in that regard. If you were looking at a development project, you would still need things like an environmental impact study to identify if the species was present on site. And then B, the first step is always to look to, can we avoid harm to the habitat here, or can we mitigate any impacts? And if there is the inability to mitigate the impacts or avoid the habitat, then you would look to this approvals process. From a staff perspective, we have some questions about the new process. The first one is, who's eligible as a third party for these funds? So for example, would it be groups like Ontario Nature or the Escarpment Biosphere Reserve? Or could it be municipalities themselves if we were looking to establish habitat, or a conservation authority in that regard? Another question we have, and we think this one is key, is will the funds in any way be kept local? So if a development project in Grey County is paying into the fund because they're destroying habitat for one of the grassland birds, will that conservation trust try to give money back to a group in Grey County that's looking to establish or rehabilitate habitat here? One of our other questions is around the term avoidance or mitigation. We feel that there needs to be clear guidance from the province on what this means. So for example, if you're developing a plan of subdivision, is avoidance, well, there's nowhere else on the property that I could develop, therefore I need to pay into the fund? Or would avoidance be, well, maybe I should look at a different property if I can't avoid the habitat on this property? And what does it mean to mitigate before you go to this final result of paying into the fund? And one of our other questions is with respect to why the new agency is needed and why this couldn't be administered by Ministry of the Environment, Conservation and Parks staff in that regard, and whether or not their staff will have the ability to keep up with the requests for authorizations in a timely fashion. One of the purported goals of establishing this agency and establishing this process is to, in some cases, try to speed up development approvals. And we just want to make sure that the ministry is adequately staffed in that regard to handle the requests that they might come in. Finally, we'd also like to know whether or not the province is looking at additional species being added by regulation in the future, or whether we really are just looking at these 6 species. With respect to the financial impacts of this change, as I said, it could impact proponents or developers, or it could impact counties or municipalities themselves as they look to do projects. It is tough to know what the financial impact is because, as I said, you'd still need to do the environmental impact studies, and you still need to look to mitigate or avoid first before you go to paying into this fund. That said, one of our questions in the earlier report is, what is the formula for paying into the fund? And so the province has shared that with us now, and we certainly appreciate the effort that's gone into trying to establish that formula in a fair fashion, and hopefully it can be equitable to proponents, big or small, in that regard. At this stage, our recommendation to Committee of the Whole is that you consider receiving the report. We would like to share the report with member municipalities throughout Grey County, as well as our 4 conservation authorities. And then we're seeking to submit this report to the province through the environmental registry posting in advance of these minutes going to council at the January 14th meeting. So that's all the comments I have at this stage, but certainly be happy to take any questions if there are any.
Thank you, Scott. Council, are there any questions?
I see Councillor Millen.
Councillor Millen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you, Scott, for the report. I'm just wondering how successful, as you say, these types of things have been tried in the past, and how successful generally have they been to, you know, say, develop potentially new habitat for the swallows, you know, over there, and have the swallows actually go over there? I mean, it's one thing to plant a tree over there, but to tell the birds that, no, you got to go over there, like, how successful has that been?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Warden. That was one of our questions in one of the earlier reports, because at that time we didn't know what species were being considered. And as you've pointed out, Councillor Milne, in some cases, planting trees can be relatively straightforward. And that was definitely seen as a acceptable option among some of the biologists and ecologists we deal with in looking at the butternut trees. And we have examples locally where we can point to developers that remove the trees and plant it elsewhere. With respect to relocating habitat or establishing habitat elsewhere, we've definitely heard mixed opinions from some of the local ecologists that we deal with, and even in some cases conservation authority staff. You know, ideally, if we can look at establishing that habitat maybe very close or adjacent to the site, that's perhaps most beneficial. But certainly, you know, as you've pointed out, we can't guarantee that the species will safely relocate to that new site. And that goes back to staff's comment about wanting to make sure that, you know, if this new agency is collecting monies, that they try to be spent as local as possible. So maybe it's not the municipal level, but maybe we look at the watershed as a meaningful boundary in that regard. And then if the province looks to broaden this approach and look at regulations for other species, that there be significant consideration given to what species could be relocated or reestablished elsewhere versus where it might be less advantageous.
Very good, thank you.
Thank you. Other questions? Madam Clerk, I don't see anyone.
No, sir, I don't see any more either.
Okay, so if that's the case, then I will call the question on the motion. Is there anyone opposed to the motion? Then that is carried. Thank you. Moving on to item 6E, which is the Next Generation 911. That item has been moved by Councillor Woodbury and seconded by Councillor O'Leary. And Randy, I believe you have the floor again.
Thank you, Warden Hicks. Yes, this is a report with respect to what's called Next Generation 911, and also a report regarding our current primary public safety answering point being Owen Sound Police Services, and getting direction to enter into negotiations for contract renewal with them. So just to provide a bit of background of what NG911 is about and why the CRTC is requiring that the existing 911 system be decommissioned. So the current 911 network and system in Canada was primarily designed for a landline system associated with a fixed address. Improvements to the system have been made over the years to adapt to cell phone technologies. However, the current system cannot handle digital information required to improve the ability to locate callers. There's also been a steady decrease in the use of landlines and a rapid increase, obviously, in the use of cell phones calling 911. And this is why CRTC has required that the networks and systems be updated to accommodate next generation 911 voice, video, and text messaging, and to decommission the existing system. The original CRTC deadlines have been extended due to the pandemic. However, the existing 911 system will still need to be decommissioned by March 30th, 2024. And there are deadlines that must be met in 2021 and 2022. I'm not an NG911 expert by any means, but from what I understand, NG911 automatically provides the 911 operator with the phone number and address or location of the caller, and allows the caller to interact with the 911 call center using new and innovative services such as real-time chat, texting to 911, transmitting such things as photos, videos, and even medical records. For residents who have communication difficulties or who are deaf or hard of hearing, NG911 will provide enhanced opportunities for those residents to communicate with 911 call centers as well. NG911 is stated to say that it will result in safer, faster, and more informed emergency responses. I copied a link in the report to a CRTC website, as well as a video that CRTC prepared that provides some further information about NG911. So the county is responsible for providing and operating what's called the Primary Public Safety Answering Point, or primary PSAP. And this is for the entire county. And essentially what this is the main call center where all 911 calls made in Grey County are directed to. Owen Sound Police Services has operated the primary PSAP for the county under contract since the beginning of 911 in this area, which started in the late 90s. The county pays an annual fee to Owen Sound Police Services for the operation of the primary PSAP, which is calculated on a per person rate based on the number of permanent residents within the county. The current per resident rate is 56 cents per person, and the permanent population based on the 2016 census was just under 94,000 people. So this works out to be a total cost per year of just over $52,500. The current agreement with Owen Sound Police Services expires this year. However, there are provisions in the current contract for automatic renewal. The existing contract does not include wording with respect to service expectations regarding NG911, and therefore staff feel it is prudent for the county to enter into discussions with Owen Sound Police Services on a new contract that will identify those requirements associated with NG911. Owen Sound Police Services has been actively working on upgrades to the call center infrastructure, software, licensing, and training for staff in order to be ready for NG911. Owen Sound Police Service is actually leading municipal service in Ontario and the only fire dispatch in Ontario when it comes to NG911 preparedness. They have recently completed redundancy testing, which will put them very close to being 100% ready to go for NG911. The total costs for getting ready for this is estimated cost over $300,000 to launch and another $50,000 to $60,000 per year to maintain the system, which does not include staffing costs. Owen Sound Police Services noted that the majority of those costs will be recouped through contract price increases at time of contract renewal with municipalities that they provide services for. The current estimated costs provided by Owen Sound Police Services for the primary PSAPs on a per residence basis would be phased in over the next 5 years, with 2021 being estimated approximately 67 cents per resident and increasing approximately 2 cents per resident each year, with the 2025 estimate cost being 75 cents per resident. Owen Sound Police Services have indicated that the final cost would be negotiated between Grey County and their chief and board to determine the actual final rates. County staff anticipate that our permanent population will increase at the next census period. The Ministry of Finance's recent population projections suggest that Grey County's permanent population will be over 100,000 people in 2021. So even if we estimate that the 2021 permanent population will be approximately 100,000 people, the 2021 primary PSAP contract cost could be approximately $67,000, which is an increase of just over $14,000 per year from the current costs. The anticipated increase in the permanent population can be part of the discussions with Owen Sound Police Services to determine the final estimated cost if County Council were to approve a contract renewal agreement. Back in 2009 and 2015, Council considered whether or not to issue a request for proposal for the provision of the primary PSAP service. And Council decided at both those times to single source the service to Owen Sound Police Services to maintain the integrity of the current 911 system. Based on the excellent service that Owen Sound Police Services has provided over the past 20 plus years, and based on the estimated cost increases as a result of NG911, And based on the fact that Owen Sound Police Service is leading the charge when it comes to being ready for NG 911, and given the current contract does not include wording with respect to the new NG 911 requirements, we're recommending that we enter into discussions with Owen Sound Police Services to negotiate a final price per resident over the next 5 years, and then to prepare a draft contract renewal agreement for council's consideration. So that's the summary of the report. I'm happy to take any questions.
Thank you, Randy. Council, any discussion, questions?
I do see CAO Wingrove.
Yes, go ahead, Kim. You're muted.
Apologies. Thanks, Mr.
No
Warden.
problem.
Just by way of a little bit more background on this initiative, that part of what makes the next generation 911 transition so important came about as a result of a coroner's inquest in 2018 that looked into some really unfortunate circumstances. One was an elderly lady who called 911 but wasn't able to communicate, and so then wasn't found for a number of days. Another was a boating accident in a remote part of Northern Ontario, and they weren't able to locate exactly where those folks were, and unfortunately 3 people lost their lives. So I think that Owen Sound Police Services are to be commended for the investment and the leadership they've shown in moving ahead on this. There is no other funding for 911 services other than the municipalities who are responsible for ensuring that this is provided. So anyway, I just feel personally that this is really an important piece of work.
Thank you, Kim. So anyone else with questions? Clerk, I don't see anyone. If that's the case, I'm going to call the question on the motion to receive and to allow staff to enter into negotiations with Owen Sound Police Services. Is there anyone opposed? That's carried. Thank you very much.
Thanks.
Thanks, Randy. And Stephanie, you're on deck. We're dealing with item 6F. Oops, let me go to the right screen here, which is a community transportation accessibility service. And this item is being moved by Councillor Hutchinson and seconded by Councillor Keaveney. And so Stephanie, if you're there, you have the floor.
Thank you, Warden Hicks, and through you. I would like to begin by sharing that the Grey Transit route has been doing really, really well. And we've been receiving a lot of positive feedback. But I will be honest and truthful and say that we have received some concerns, but we are in the process of addressing those concerns. One of them was a lack of payment by cash, and we are working on developing some couponing codes so people can use coupon codes to erase out the need for cash payments. So we're working with our third-party providers such as the YMCA and different agencies like that, Dufferin County, Grey County as a whole, and all of those kinds of organizations to help individuals who have the need to pay by cash so that they can access our transit system. So we will be hoping to have that solution early 2021 as well. We have had some concerns about accessibility, and I'm here today to address those concerns. And we also had some concerns about our schedules and the connections that we had, and that there were just some connections that weren't so perfect, and that there were some connections that it was taking quite a while for people to be able to get back from where they wanted, from where they were to where they wanted to go. So I'm happy to report that we changed those schedules on December the 7th. On Monday, we changed those schedules, and we've been receiving feedback that they have been helping a lot of people make more connections. And I foresee that our ridership will increase as a result of those schedule changes. I should note that even we began charging fees in November, and for the most part, our ridership has remained stable or has increased on some routes. So our fares are in line with what people are okay with paying, and that's great news for us. When the service began in September, we began with a system that was fiscally responsible and modest, as launching a new transit system is hard, but launching it during a pandemic is probably even harder. So currently our vehicles are not wheelchair accessible. However, we've been working closely with our specialized transit providers, and we've been helping anyone who has accessible needs working with our specialized transit providers. We have recognized that there is a gap in our service, and I'm hoping that today my report addresses those concerns and that we can move forward in offering accessible parallel services in 2021. So I should note that the Grey Transit route is a conventional transit system, which means it runs on a fixed schedule and it stops at fixed stops. So passengers will need to be able to get to those stops and be picked up and dropped off at those stops following the current schedule. The plan will be to have the accessible vehicle run alongside the GTR as it is booked as needed. So what we will ask is that individuals who require an accessible ride do book in advance, so that way we can make sure that we have the right vehicle that can accommodate their needs, as different wheelchairs have different capacities and weight limits to them. So we want to make sure that we have the right vehicle showing up. And additionally, we want to have those conversations with individuals to find out if they have any passengers traveling with them, because we can accommodate children with individuals who have wheelchairs, and we can also accommodate adults and things like that. So that's pretty unique because typically our specialized transit providers are not able to accommodate children on the vehicles, but in partnership with our specialized providers, we have been able to navigate that, and we will be able to accommodate children and everybody on the bus with the person who has an accessible need, so that they can travel with their family and friends. Staff feel that this is an appropriate solution. I know the long-term vision for myself is to see that eventually we have fully accessible vehicles, so it's one system and that there's no differences between our systems. But at this time, I think this is the most financially responsible thing to begin this way. We'll be able to get a better understanding of our riders' needs and provide equal service for everybody. Does anybody have any questions?
Thank you for that report, Stephanie. Questions from council? I see Councillor Milne's hand. Go ahead, Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. Thank you for the report, Stephanie. My question revolves around, where does Smart Transit fit into this? Because very much that's their lane, is dealing with people that have specialized needs. It is, well, you tell me. You tell me then. How are they going to fit into this, or how could they? Please.
Through your Warden Hicks. So that's a great question, but I want to make sure that it's clear. Saugeen Mobility is specialized transit, right? So Saugeen Mobility picks individuals up from their home and will bring them to, say, a doctor's appointment, maybe the grocery store, or family and friends, wherever the person wants to travel. And they have the flexibility with a smart service where they can wait for the individual to finish their appointment and then take them home when they would like to go home. The difference between our system is the person has to work around our schedules. So I want to make sure that that's very clear. So they have to work on our schedules. And if their appointment ends early, they can't go home early. They have to wait for the bus to come back to get them. But how does SMART fit into this? We have spoken to SMART. At this time, we are going to be sticking with Home and Community Support Services as our partnership, but we are willing and able to work with SMART at any time if their capacities change. But I believe that at this moment in time, their capacity is not able to accommodate our needs. And so we do think in the future that that could be a possibility. But at this time, we did speak with SMART and they were not interested, or maybe their capacities are just not there. So we have explored that avenue.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Hutchinson, I think I saw your hand. No? Okay. You're just waving to friends. Anyone else with questions? I see Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Warden, and thanks, Stephanie, for the report. Can you just please further comment on your dialogue with SMART and what was actually said as far as not being willing to participate? And I mean, just for everyone else's knowledge, I do sit on the SMART board, so I'm interested to see what the response was from the general manager.
Through you, Warden Hicks, I shall say that it was not me who had the conversation personally with the manager, as I was relying on our contractor to have those conversations, as he's the one who is delivering our service for us. So I asked him to reach out to our specialized transit providers. I can counsel, though, I can ask for further dialogue, and I can bring that back at a later date. And I can provide that dialogue to Kim, and perhaps she could carry that dialogue forward in the future, if not at another council date.
Well, thank you, Stephanie, because it certainly, as a SMART board, there's been discussion about the duplication that's occurring, throughout, the county, both in Gray and Bruce, in regards to specialized service. And, as a smart board, I think we would like to see that duplication eliminated as possible, and certainly want to have discussions with both Gray and Bruce around one amalgamated specialized transit system at some point. I just don't see people that are within the smart catchment area wanting to take Gray County up on their transit system when they already have a specialized transit available to them. The issue right now is it's fragmented, and it's only member municipalities that the individuals have an option. So I think a lot more work needs to be done on bringing this all together, but I do appreciate your efforts. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Woodbury.
Thank you. Thanks, Stephanie. I also sit on the SMART board, and Chatsworth and Southgate have been giving their yearly notice of leaving the system in hopes there would be something within the county in the future. So I know the board itself is very open to discussions of any kind. So it may have got shut down kind of in the middle. So we'd be looking forward to hearing from you. And thanks for all your work.
Thank you.
Anyone else?
Mr. Warden, I do see Kim.
Oh, Kim, go ahead, Kim.
Thank you. And I think Councillor Mackey and Councillor Woodbury raise an important point, that what we're proposing to do here with taking bookings for a point-to-point service will be an important proof of concept. How useful is the GTR service to people who require an accessible ride? Can this work for people, and how often or how much? And I think with some time and some good advertising, and that we'll be able to come back to all of you with some numbers of what we've seen, and perhaps that will be useful information for the board about whether there's the potential for something to substitute one from another, or take on an additional role in all of this.
Okay. Councillor Milne.
Just one further question for Stephanie, possibly. Is there a location that we can go to see what the rolling numbers are of riders, and where could we find those?
Through you, Warden Hicks, I have sent that link to all of your CAOs and members of your municipalities, but I'm happy to share that link with you. It's just a live link, and I've committed to updating it once a month, usually by the 15th, so that you'll have access to all of the ridership information. But I'm happy to share that link through our clerks, and then they can forward it on to everyone, because yeah, you can access your ridership and everybody else's data whenever you would like.
Most excellent. Thank you.
You're welcome.
All right, thank you. I don't see any other hands, Madam Clerk. And if that's the case, I'm going to call the question on the motion to receive this report and to commence a parallel accessibility system as outlined in this report, I guess commencing January 1, correct?
I cannot necessarily commit to January 1. We're going to do our best, because we're just getting so close to the end of the year that I want to make sure we roll it out successfully and that everybody knows about it. So early January 2021, we'll have it ready to go.
I apologize for that. I should have noted that your recommendation did say in 2021. Councillor Milne?
Just another question. I'm surprised nobody else has raised it. What sort of cost are we looking at for this parallel service?
Yes, through you, Warden Hicks. So right now we will be charged a per kilometer fee and a per hour fee to offer this service. The per kilometer fee will start in Owen Sound, and it will go however far the person travels and back. So I am committing to keeping council updated regularly and keeping a very close eye onto what this dollar amount turns into, because I want to be understanding of our finances and reasonable to see when we hit that threshold where the demand warrants switching over to fully accessible vehicles, because our needs are there, because it is a financial jump to switch to fully accessible vehicles that are large enough to hold the capacity of everybody in one spot. So I just want to make sure that we the finances make sense. So I'm going to keep an eye on it, but I'm willing to cap it at 80,000 is kind of where my limit would be. But I'm happy to come back every month and let you know how it's going.
So if I might, Mr. Warden, I'm just not entirely clear. You say you want to cap it at 80,000. Is that for the specialized service? And is that money budgeted? Like you kind of lost me here. Please.
My apologies. So when I came to County Council in September 14th, I brought a report that shared the cost to increase service if we were to switch our vehicles over to accessible vehicles. And in that report, it outlined a variety of costs to increase our vehicles. That being said, I also provided in that report an option to purchase an accessible van or like a minivan. And that van, I was willing to say it would probably cost about 80 grand to get that vehicle. And that's $80,000. I wasn't sure because we weren't sure about usage at the time, and I wasn't sure about gas and time. So 80,000 was just going to be what the vehicle would cost, and the rest was unknown. At this point, I don't have to pay for a vehicle, but what's unknown is the usage. So the usage is going to drive our cost, and I'm not sure what that cost will be yet. In regards to the budgeted piece, I can defer to CAO Wingrove because I believe she has some comments she'd like to make.
Well, I will only add that we're still working within the envelope of the provincial grant. So this is, with the exception of the Grey Road 4 route, there's not a levy impact to this.
So the specialized parallel service will not be offered on the Grey Road route, or?
No, sorry, I apologize. I was distinguishing between the grant funds and which routes they provide and which ones the county is undertaking.
Correct.
Councillor Mackey.
Thanks, Warden. And I guess the more I listen, the more I'm a little bit confused. It seems like we are creating a duplicate system now. You know, when I look around the table, there's 4 member municipalities that are part of SMART. Owen Sound has a special mobility transit, and I believe Meaford does. So why are we recreating another one for, you know, a couple of municipalities that aren't members?
I'll take it, Steph. That's there is a requirement for for the county's transportation system to provide an accessible service. All under the AODA, the transit systems are to be accessible. And so this is staff's, I think, best effort to meet that requirement, but in a way that respects the limited budgets that we have, but ensures that that group of people who require that service and can make use of a point-to-point service have that ability. My own feeling is that the pool of people that will be able to effectively use a point-to-point service in rural Ontario is somewhat limited, because you have to get to a stop and you have to be able to then be picked up and get to the place where your final destination is. But we certainly don't want to discriminate against anyone. So we're meeting the requirements that the province has laid out for us, but trying to do that in a way that is hopefully going to be sustainable for at least for this year.
Councillor Milne.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. And I want to say that I'm very thankful and appreciative of the efforts of staff to meet the spirit of serving our customers, if not the letter of the legislation. But that said, I think everybody can agree that we're rapidly going down a rabbit hole here, and boy, I hope we don't go too far before we really see some good numbers and some good dollar figures of where we're headed with this, because this has the potential to really get expensive in a hurry.
Other comments? Councillor Patterson.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. I would like to suggest that the members of the SMART board take it back to SMART. And would you be able to contract out the required service through SMART? They're already in the business, and if you need one vehicle, could they not supply that vehicle on the point-to-point if the board is willing?
Stephanie?
Thank you, Warden Hicks. That's an interesting concept. We're actually, the way our current proposal to work with home and community support services, it's not necessarily about just getting one vehicle. So the unique thing is, because we're operating on 6 different routes, some of them on the same day, the current proposal is that home and community support services has multiple vehicles in their fleet. So if we need the support on all of our routes, they can accommodate that. So that's also why this partnership is advantageous, because they have a number of vehicles in their fleet, and providing just one may not be enough.
Having said that, however, I think if HCSS, no, sorry, let me rewind. If SMART is interested in working with our contractor with driver's seat and accepting calls, I think that there's an opportunity for some discussion there, simply because there may be calls where they're the closest service provider, and that would just make sense.
Exactly. And we have had those conversations with home and community support services and with our contractor, and we're all on the same page that ultimately we just want to help people get from point A to point B. So if Saugeen Mobility would like to join in on this with us and work, we are happy to work with everyone and everybody. So please forward them back to me, and I will gladly meet with your board.
Okay, Councillor Mackey.
Well, Mr. Warden, I will certainly commit to bring this matter up at our next SMART board meeting, and to see what conversations can take place. Because I'd hate to see home and community supports traveling down to Grey Highlands when there's a smart mobility van traveling from Southgate to Chatsworth already. It's that sort of thing that we've got to get rid of. So I'll certainly bring this to the board and see what we can do. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you. Councillor Gamble, did I see your hand?
Yes, you did. And Scott pretty well answered what I was going to say, is why would SMART really want to entertain this application when it's taking business away from them? I just don't see the attitude for it. Thank you.
Can I, Mr. Warden?
Yeah.
I really don't see that there's a significant overlap between the service that SMART and HCSS have been providing, where they're going to someone's home, they're taking them to an appointment, they're waiting for them, and they're taking them back home, is a very different thing than picking somebody up at the side of the road on Highway 10 and taking them to the arena in Dundalk or the corner in Shelburne, for one example. They're very different services.
So I'm going to now call the question. This is to receive the report and to commence a parallel service sometime in 2021. So sounds like there's going to be some tweaking of what that will look like. But nevertheless, in principle, we're proceeding with a parallel accessible service sometime in 2021 if we vote in favor. So can I call the question on the motion? Is there anyone opposed? That then is carried. Okay, so we are moving next into closed meeting, and we are going into closed meeting. Sorry?
Actually, Mr. Warden, sorry, Councillor O'Leary pulled an item from the consent agenda that we should deal with before we move into close.
Apologies. Yes, that was item 5C.
Yes.
Go back there.
So we'll just need a motion to put it.
Yes, that's the Balmy Beach subdivision information report. So I need a mover. Can I perhaps get Councillor O'Leary to move? I don't see his hand. Anyways, does someone want to move? Oh, I see Councillor Milne, seconded by Deputy Warden Paul McQueen. And Councillor O'Leary, you have the floor.
Thank you, Mr. Warden. This report is actually coming to our council on Monday night. And I've got some things marked off here, highlighted, and I'm just going to read what I have highlighted, and then perhaps Randy or Scott could comment further. The proposed subdivision will be serviced by partial services, receiving water from the East Linton water system and individual private septic systems. The subject lands are designated inland lakes and shorelines by the county official plan, which contemplates new residential development. However, the lands are not within an identified settlement area. So in the context of the proposed plan of subdivision, partial services are not necessary to address failed individual on-site services. Therefore, policy 1.6.6.5 is not applicable. As noted, the subject lands are designated inland lakes and shorelines by the county official plan, which contemplates new residential development. However, this area is not an identified settlement area in the context of the PPS and policy 1.6.6.5. Therefore, it would be helpful for the county planning staff to confirm how the proposed plan of subdivision represents infilling and or minor rounding out of existing development within a settlement area. Furthermore, it would be helpful for the county and or township planning staff to confirm as to why East Linton water services are proposed to be extended to service the residential development when the subject lands are not located within a designated secondary settlement area of the East Linton as identified by the county official plan. And maybe in addition to that, I would maybe ask Randy or Scott or whoever's going to speak, at what point are we going to do a study to see the long-term effects on some of these decisions? Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Thank you, Randy.
Thank you, through you, Mr. Warden. With respect to the inland lakes and shoreline designation, so that is a designated settlement area within the county official plan. So with respect to that, the provincial policy statement and the county official plan does permit development on partial services within designated settlement areas to allow for minor or infilling and minor rounding out of existing development on partial services, provided that site conditions are suitable for the provision of those services with no negative impacts. A servicing option study has been submitted with respect to this application. The township and the county will be doing a peer review of that study. So we're going to be waiting for the results of that peer review, and we're happy to share that with city staff or others who are interested in seeing the results of that particular study. With respect to, in terms of the proposed development, it is 6 single detached lots is being proposed on an existing open maintained road. All the lots would front onto that road, and therefore it can be considered infilling. And as I mentioned, inland lakes and shoreline designation is considered a settlement area designation in the county official plan. So, but if council has concerns with respect to the existing policies in the county official plan or areas designated for growth and development, this can be reviewed further. However, we would require direction from county council as to what policies should be reviewed. I do note that we are planning to do a housekeeping amendment in 2021 to incorporate the anticipated results of the updated growth management study and to do some updates based on the 2020 provincial policy statement. So there is an opportunity to review other policies in the county official plan. But as I said, at this stage, this proposed development is in a designated settlement area and contemplates this development, subject to making sure that there's going to be no impacts from the servicing that's being proposed. And as I mentioned, we're going to be doing a peer review of that study to see if the agreed upon results that's suggested in the report are in fact something that can be justified.
Okay,
Randy, Councilor O'Leary?
Yeah, thanks for that, Randy. And respectfully, I will not be supporting that resolution. Thank you, Mr. Warden.
Okay, any other questions on this item? So then on the motion to receive and approve the plan as we see it in the report, any opposed? That is carried. All right. We are going to move on to, sorry?
Mr. Warden, I'd like a recorded vote on that.
Can we do that now that it has passed, Madam Clerk?
Yes, sir, you can do it immediately before or immediately after calling the question.
Okay, very good, thank you.
Okay, so I'm just gonna get that resolution. So this is to receive the report for information. Councillor Mackey.
In favor?
Councillor Gamble. Councillor Gamble.
Sorry, in favor.
Councillor Burley.
Favor.
Councillor Carlton.
In favor.
Councillor McQueen.
In favor?
Councillor Desai.
Yay.
I'm sorry.
In favor.
Thank you. Councillor Patterson.
In favor.
Warden Hicks.
Yay.
Councillor Clumpus.
In favor.
Councillor Keaveney.
In favor.
Councillor Body.
Opposed.
Councillor O'Leary.
Opposed.
Councillor Woodbury.
In favor.
Councillor Millen.
Yay.
Councillor Soever.
Opposed.
Councillor Potter.
Opposed.
Councillor Robinson.
In favor.
Councillor Hutchinson.
In favor.
The motion is carried 61-29.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. We're moving on to item number 7. We're going to be moving into closed session. It is moved by Councillor Clumpus and seconded by Councillor Milne. And it's for the purpose of proposed or pending acquisition or disposition of land for advice subject to solicitor privilege and for the potential litigation purposes. Anyone opposed? Seeing none, that is carried. Do we need to take a moment here to allow for?
Kim Wingrove, Randy Schertzer, Scott Taylor, Pat Hoy, Steve Dahlmeyer, Sharon Melville, Michael Letourneau, Tara, Rob, and myself.
Thank you, Rob. It's now 1:54. We're back in open session. I would indicate for the record that we discussed only the items indicated in the agenda and nothing else. We are now turning to the SWIFT matter. What's that on the other business, I suppose? Yeah, so we're dealing, sorry, before we're dealing with other business, item A is correspondence from SWIFT with respect to appointment of someone on their board. Kim, I believe you're carrying this.
Muted. There we are. So with regard to board member representation, the county needs to, am I in the right spot, Heather? Yes?
Yes, you are.
This is my item.
This is SWIFT, yes.
Yeah, that the county needs to reappoint someone to appoint someone to the board for a 2-year term that would carry us to the 2023 AGM for SWIFT.
So Mr. Warden, if I may, only one name came forward for that appointment prior to today's meeting, and that was yourself to be reappointed to that board. So before we put the motion on the floor, we want to have as complete a motion as possible. Is there anyone else who'd like to have their name considered for this appointment? I see Councillor McQueen.
Yeah, I put my name forward, Madam Clerk.
Okay. Anyone else? Okay, so we will have an election then for this position. Similar to what we've done this morning, we will use the raise hand feature. And we will go in, well, I'll follow the same process. Councillor Warden Hicks and Councillor McQueen, I'll give you each 2 minutes to speak to your interest in this nomination and then hold an election.
Okay, so I go first, do I?
Yes, sir.
Thank you. I don't need 2 minutes. I would just indicate to council that I've been on the SWIFT board for the last 2 years. And in the last year, I was appointed to their executive. We are finally breaking ground and having success. I would also indicate that I'm the only person currently on the board with legal training, which they do like to have. So other than that, I'm happy to continue serving on the SWIFT board. I'm pretty passionate about the expand of robust broadband at an affordable price. And I will continue to do so whether I'm elected or not to this board.
Thank you. Councillor McQueen.
Well, thank you, County Council, for the opportunity to put my name forward. And certainly I want to say that I feel that Councillor Hicks and the Warden Hicks has done a great job on this board. Just moving forward, I think there was some issues around the part of a part of Grey County was not included in SWIFT on the last go around, and there was certain reasons around that, and I understand it, but I know from Grey Highlands into Southgate, and certainly I would like to advocate a little bit more on the next go around, and I know the next process will be the larger amount of service to be provided to the residents of Grey County and through SWIFT. So I would like to at least be a little bit more persuasive or to advocate in the sense of making that area also available to SWIFT as well. So I feel that I know through my involvement on AMO, and I know with the provincial government, I know they're very supportive of increased broadband, and certainly I feel through my ability of having a little extra time now, that not being warden, I could be a limited time on this board. So I'll leave it at that for County Council to decide. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor McQueen. We will go to a vote, but I do see Councillor Keaveney has her hand up. Councillor Keaveney, do you have a question before we proceed?
No, I don't.
Okay. All right. Just wanting to confirm. So again, we will go in alphabetical order using the raise hand feature. Those, you will only vote for one, obviously. Warden Hicks. Thank you. I have 14 for Warden Hicks. Councillor McQueen. Oh, I'm sorry. We'll clear that. Okay. Clear that. Now we'll go. Councillor McQueen. My apologies. Okay. 3 for Councillor McQueen. Warden Hicks will be reappointed to the SWIFT, and I think we have that motion moved and seconded. Councillor Millen.
And seconded by Councillor Mackey.
Okay.
Is there anyone opposed? That motion is carried. And next we're dealing with the OGRA nominations.
So I can speak to that again. Tara did ask when the agenda was out if anyone was interested in putting their name forward for the Board of Directors for a 2-year term for the Ontario Good Roads Association. And for the time of from that time until the time of the beginning of this meeting, one name was brought forward, and that was Warden Hicks. So is anyone else interested in having their name put forward for the OGRA Board of Directors?
And for the record, Madam Clerk, I did say that I would do it only if no one else wants to do it.
Absolutely.
So no one else had put forward their name, and I did respond to say, okay, I will do it if no one else. It's not a popular.
We actually haven't had one on in quite some time. So I do see Councillor Desai has his hand up.
Councillor Desai, are you interested in serving in this capacity?
Thank you, Warden Hicks. So I am already on the board of directors representing Grey Highlands. So I would imagine that we would face each other in an election and at the conference if you were to.
Yeah.
But again, I have no opposition to that.
I have no interest in creating a conflict or a competition. So if I need to step aside to allow yourself or someone else to do the job, more than pleased to do so.
So quite frankly, it's done on the basis of the different zones across the province, and Grey County certainly falls under one of those zones. And I've still put in my nomination through Grey Highlands. So.
Then say no more. I will then withdraw my interest.
If I may, Heather,
yes.
There's not a requirement for us
No,
to
there is
have
not a
someone. This is
requirement.
totally
No.
optional. If someone
Yes.
wished to stand for nomination with the support of County Council, they can, but we certainly aren't required to do this.
No.
Right. So certainly we have Councillor Desai in place, and he sits at our body, and I'm happy to have that. So I only said I would do it because nobody else had volunteered, but I didn't realize the Councillor Desai element of it. So I think we can move on, Madam Clerk.
We will just note that in the minutes that there was no name put forward.
Excellent. Is there any other business? Next, then we will turn to number 9. Any notices of motion?
I do see Councillor Desai's hand.
Yes, Councillor Desai.
Thank you, Warden Hicks. It's related to other business. 2 weeks ago, now I met with a resident in Fleshin, or just outside of Fleshin. They live on Grey Road 32, right around the bend. I'm trying to think of the directions now. East back line. One of the issues that they had there was with regards to safety and the speeds that vehicles were traveling at. I understand that transportation staff is looking at the issue it's on their docket to look at, and I can appreciate that. Having said that, I would still at budget time I would like to bring up the item of automatic speed enforcement, as well as other traffic calming measures that could be put in place on that bend to make that bend safer, not just for the residents who live there, but also for people who are traveling on that road. Thank you.
So Councillor Desai, was this other business, or is this a notice of motion?
It's other business. I'm not providing a notice of motion. It's just other business that I would like for us to keep in mind as we go into the budget deliberations in January.
Thank you very much. Is there anyone else with either other business or any notice of motion? Then I have a motion. It's a motion to adjourn. By all means, it's being, surprise, surprise, being brought by Councillor Burley and seconded by Councillor Hutchison. Any opposed? Thank you very much. Wow, look at this, 2:15, we're done. Thank you to everyone. I know it was a heavy agenda, but we got through it, and I can go to my peanut butter sandwich now.
Well done, Mr. Warden.
Take care.
Bye, everyone.
Yes,
Merry
happy
Christmas.
holidays.
Merry